Thanks, Adam. It's 9 o'clock. I just got to make sure we've got a quorum. Yeah, we do. All right, we will get started this morning. First up is the Regional District Okanagan-Smokemean regular board meeting. Just a reminder, items on the consent agenda, if anything on there you want to discuss, now's the time to bring that up to move it into the regular portion of the agenda. Not seeing any hands on that, so looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. That brings us to the consent agenda, corporate issues. Looking for a motion on that one. Moved, thank you. Seconded, great. All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Motion carries. We don't have any development services. B1, I'll go to the CAO. Oh, he wants to say something quickly. CAO, go ahead.
Just very quickly before we start with the agenda. Today is British Columbia Shake OPC, which is a earthquake drill. However, due to the timing of our board meeting, participation will not be required for those that are in this room. However, outside this room, we're going to be adhering to it. So just to let everybody know, your phones are going to all start either, I guess they should be shaking because it's BC Shake BC. Please ignore it. It's not a real earthquake. And with that, I can't start with the first part of the agenda. So you're going to be seeing me taking my glasses off and on. I'm having some eye treatments, and right now it's at the worst part, but hopefully it'll get better. So an application has been submitted to the Agricultural Land Commission under section 20.2 of the Agricultural Land Commission Act and referring to the regional district in order to allow for the operation of campground with a tourist commercial portion of the property as a non-farm use with the agricultural land reserve. And you're going to see something new starting today. It's an experiment. Hopefully it works. The agenda is on your screen. So this way there's no misinterpretation. If there's any changes that you decide to make, it can be made live. So the agenda is as you show on the screen, and staff is here to answer questions if you have any. Staff?
No presentation on this one. So Director Chahal is not in attendance today, but he did ask that we move the staff recommended motion. So is someone prepared to move that? Mover, a seconder, thank you. And any discussion on this? Go ahead, Director Monteith.
Thank you, through the chair. Has it gone to the APC?
That's a question. Staff, go ahead.
Through the chair, it did not go to the APC.
Okay. Any other discussion on this one? Seeing none, this is says corporate vote. So all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to B2, an Area G item for CAO.
Thank you. This application is seeking to amend official community plan designation and applying zoning to the portion of the subject property in order to provide a future development capable of the lands, and the recommended motion is as seen on your screen. Again, staff's here to answer questions.
We'll go to the area director, Director Roberts. Direction on this one.
I'll be doing the alternate in regards to accepting the proposal, and I'll speak to it after I make that motion.
Okay, it's moved, seconded, it's on the floor. You want to speak to it? Go ahead,
Sure,
Director Roberts.
Yeah, this particular piece of property was part of our official community plan committee discussions. The staff understood that and no part of that. But again, as AG land, I know that there was a recommendation from an agrologist in regards to the particular piece of land that the landowner had actually turned into hayfield. Same idea that this particular area is has for form and function and character, has the small holding properties coming right up River Road. And then to speak about it in regards to agriculture, this part of the hayfield, you know, we see it as a community supporting rural lifestyle. I live on one of the very few subdivisions of small holdings. And in our particular area, you know, I have a small orchard. Across from me is a cherry orchard. Next to that, it's a plum orchard. Next to that, so there is the continuation of agricultural work, but at the same time, being in an area where our little community had 7 daughters all playing and living that lifestyle with horses and chickens, and that we support this kind of community moving forward. So again, that's why I accept this. And it's also been through a community committee that was back during our OCP process and supported at that time.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Batten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, is the director moving the alternate, which is to read the bylaws the first, second,
Yes.
third time, or first and second time and proceed to public hearings?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so that'll be coming up on our screen. Any other discussion on this? Not seeing any hands. I notice our screen is still saying the motion to be denied, but we can't change it. Okay, so the motion is the alternative. It's to approve it, to give it first and second and send it to public hearing. And it is a rural vote, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us down to Public Works. Now, there was a request I just had received from Director Gettens to hold this one till later in the meeting because she's absent for a bit. So if the board is okay with that, we can push it towards the end of the meeting if that's all right. So we'll go to C2, which is the Utilities Amendment to Fees and Charges Bylaw. CAO?
Thank you. The purpose is, the purpose, holy cow, just hold on. I've got to make this even bigger than I thought. Got it. So the purpose of this report is to include recently acquired water and wastewater systems into the RDOS fees and charges bylaw for 2025 and correct an error with the CART program debt billing, and staff's here to answer any questions that you may have, and the resolution is as you see on the screen.
Okay, so direction on this from the board? Someone prepared to move this one? Go ahead, Director Taylor. I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm just struggling a little bit with technology this morning. Can I just verify if this is the
Fees and charges for the
Most-
utilities?
utilities, Lakeshore, Highlands, and Vintage Views?
That's correct.
Right, okay. I do wish to make an amendment. So I'd like to move, and I've just had a bit of a script worked up for me by our corporate officer, that fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3097.03 2025 be read a third time as amended by your section 2.110 for Lakeshore Waterworks System, per property removing 420 and replacing it with 464, and per vacant lot removing 210 and replacing it with 153. And then under section 2.2, for Vintage Views wastewater system, per property removing 551 and replacing with 570. And per vacant lot, removing 275 and replacing it with 190.
Okay, so
And I'll speak to that when you've had it and kind of just summarize that in more comprehensive, understandable.
okay, so you're
Words.
moving to basically, in a nutshell, up the fee for the occupied lots, and the unoccupied ones is going down just a little bit. So
Correct.
that's the move. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded, it's on the floor. So I'll go back to you, Director Taylor, for a quick explanation.
Yeah, it's necessary. You know, we need to get the money flowing in for operating costs and repairs. There are a small number of vacant lots relative to the number of built homes. For example, in Vintage Views wastewater, there's 112 lots in total. 78 of them are built and 34 are vacant. In Lakeshore Water, there's 311 lots, 277 are built, again, 34 vacant. So as there's a relatively small number of vacant lot owners that have had little or no use of their land for several years, and that may continue for some time, I'm moving that we amend the bylaw such that vacant lots pay 1/3 the rate of built properties. And that is down from the 50% that was proposed by staff, but it is still well within their range of 25 to 50%.
Okay, thanks for that. Any further discussion on this? Go ahead, Ms. Batten.
Mr. Chair, just for clarity, I just want to make sure that the director is also finishing that resolution by adopting the bylaw as well? With
Thanks
with the
to the
amendments?
corporate officer. I wasn't certain if I was supposed to do that as a second motion or that was together. I would do it together if I can.
Okay, so you're moving third as amended.
And adoption.
And adoption, okay. Is the seconder okay with that? Sure. And Director Monteith, you had a question? Go ahead.
I do, thank you. I just want to make sure, I guess hear from staff to make sure that these changes aren't going to directly impact that service budget.
Go to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I calculated them out to make sure that these are high enough to cover it.
Okay, still collecting the required amount. That's good to know. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, we'll call a question on a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to Protective Services, item D1, Community Emergency Prepared Fund, CAO.
Thank you. To secure provincial funding for emergency support services for the region and enhance the capacity, resource, and cooperation with the ESS team within the RDOS to respond to the emergency and disaster. That's the purpose of this report. You'll see the recommended motion on the screen. If staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Someone prepared to move this one? Direction?
I'd move it.
Moved, seconded, thank you. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Go ahead, Director Taylor.
What do we do, or a question to staff, what happens with the incorporation of OK Falls? Would that be included in this?
I'll go to staff.
Thank you very much, Dot. This grant is it's actually for emergency support services, equipment, and training. So it would incorporate all the municipalities and bands within the regional district, including Okanagan Falls.
Further, go ahead.
Yeah, so with all due respect, I get that from an operational perspective, but from the corporate officer's perspective or the CAO's perspective, does the wording need to be amended to include future municipality of Okanagan Falls?
I'll go to the CAO.
Short answer, no. It does not include the word Summerland, Oliver, Swiss, etc. It would be all participating members. Just for information, when OK Falls does incorporate and Netter's patent is finally finished, any and all bylaws, any policies, procedures, any commitments automatically carry forward to OK Falls. So you don't have to say OK Falls going forward.
Okay, doesn't need to be specific there. Any other discussion on this? Seeing no hands, again, corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to finance, E1, Community Works Gas Tax Reserve, CAO.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to authorize additional funds required to purchase and install digital speed radar signs for electoral area D, E, F, G, and I. The original budget amount has increased to procurement and installation costs. Just to give the board that, in case they forgot, we did get a $3,500 grant for each of those signs. However, it's not 100% funding, and staff's here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I'm assuming you're wanting to move that, Director Roberts?
Yes, and I got a question.
Okay, mover, seconded, thank you. And I'll go to Director Roberts with the question.
Thank you. The $3,000 that's from ICBC, I get confused quite often. And I just want clarity, it's on each sign rather than each, or is it $3,000 in regards to double? Because again, the price is more than doubled.
CAO?
It's for each sign. So ICBC has, it should be for each, it's not 3,000 for all 5 signs.
No, it's,
It's
I guess the
3,000
question is it for 3,000 each area or 3,000 per
Each.
sign?
It's 3,000 for each area.
Area? Okay. There's that.
That
Anything
clears it
further?
up because that I will be bringing forward in a upcoming meeting changes because I'll have to dig into another piggy bank.
Okay, CAO and then.
So the
Dr. Monteith.
original intent when I personally applied for the signs because I cashed in a few favors, it was 1 sign for each area. And if there's more than 1 sign in each area, then no, but the intent is 1 sign for, it was in 1 sign for each area.
Okay, Director Monteith?
Through the chair, I've had a request from Apex to also have a sign up there. Is this a good time to include them or consult and then come back? What's the process?
CAO?
Budget could be amended at any time, as long as there's a funding source, it's not a problem.
Okay.
The only issue might be the operational side of it. I believe the ICBC grant requires us to have the signs installed before December 31st. So that may pose a problem for the Apex edition. But we would have to check with the operations team.
Okay. Any further? Go ahead, Director
Thank you.
Monteith.
Just to follow up, the resort would be the best contact to look at location.
All right.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Myself,
Go ahead, Director Taylor.
yeah, I'd just like to see this whole issue raised with Mott at our upcoming meeting pretty shortly. I feel in several instances, these signs are being put on Mott controlled roadways. And really, it seems to me we're taking on some of Mott's responsibilities. I appreciate we're doing that in some cases to preserve life. But seems to me that this is in large part their cost that we're doing because they won't.
No comment on that one. Director Roberts?
Yeah, thank you to the chair. I think the concern that I had was what was allowed and what was expected in the spring, and that Mott dragged its feet long enough that all of a sudden they weren't allowing us to use the equipment that was available then. Now it's gone up more than double. And it's kind of like if you've got an agreement at one point, could you hold to the cost commitments? Because that was quite a change.
Okay. Worth noting. Any further discussion? Again, seeing no hands, this is a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. E2, 2025-2029 5-year financial plan bylaw amendment, CAO.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to talk about the expenditure, $10,000 for electoral area C rural projects operating reserve to provide a contribution towards the South Okanagan General Hospital modular housing project for health workers. The initiative is essential for attracting and retaining qualified professionals for the health and safety regional district in the regional district area. And the recommended motion is as seen on the screen. Staff's here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, is someone prepared to move this for Director Chahal? Moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Not seeing hands. Again, corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. E3, permissive tax exemptions, and back to the CAO.
Thank you. So this is a yearly thing that the board and pretty well every single local government has to go through. And it's the purpose of this report is to look at the permissive tax exemption and for each of the areas for the nonprofit groups. There is a PowerPoint presentation that staff has for you, and you see the recommendation on the board. And staff's here to answer questions as you may have.
Okay, direction from the board on this. Someone prepared to move this one? Moved? Seconder? Thank you. It's on the floor. Any discussion?
There is a PowerPoint if the board wants to see it.
Okay, I'm hearing a few want to see it, so I'll put it over to staff.
Okay, we'll just wait till Adam loads it up here. So you guys have seen the members have seen this presentation before. It's going to be a quick refresher on what the permissive tax exemption is. Right, tax exemptions are granted at the discretion of local governments and must be adopted by bylaw. Bylaw adoption requirement, the Local Government Act states that it has to be adopted by local governments on or before October 31st. Examples of properties that are eligible. It's land or improvements both owned or held by athletic or service organizations, art galleries and museums owned by charitable organizations, and not-for-profit seniors community housing. Public places of worship receive a statutory property exemption. These are automatically made through provincial legislation. Statutory tax exemptions are directly assigned by BC assessment. The goal of permissive tax exemptions is that it develops developments that benefit the community, such as athletic clubs, nonprofit groups that provide services to the community that help to meet local government objectives and support heritage properties. They attract new residents and businesses and encourage economic development. It supports riparian properties that help meet municipal conservation and environmental goals. And it supports the operation of public recreational facilities such as golf courses, which assist in achieving social, cultural, and health-related goals. So golf course is usually a little bit of a contentious issue, but what they do is they create community benefits, they support nonprofit organizations, they do economic development and environmental conservation. Any questions?
I see one here. Go ahead, Director Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. First off, when's the cutoff if you, in regards to these people putting in for these things?
I wish I had that memorized, but I know we send out advertisement in around June or July, and I believe the end of August or September is the cutoff.
Okay, thank you. Just, I noticed somebody had missed it. And my second question is, Nickel Plate Cross Country Ski Club is on Nickel Plate Road up by Nickel Plate Lake. I know in Penticton Rural, that's the address for Nickel Plate Road, or?
So what's?
Well, it's just stating in regards to civic address as Penticton Rural.
I think that's the way it's listed, probably.
Yeah.
Just seemed open-ended, that's all, because it's not a specific location then. But okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Director Federico?
Thank you through the chair. I see that the Naramata Museum's on here, which is RDOS owned. We have another building in the community that's RDOS owned that's not on this list, that's kind of run by nonprofit. So do they need to be on this list, or because it's an RD building, we're just exempt from that? And then in which case, wouldn't the museum just need to come off because we own the building and they're just contracted to run the museum? So how does that work?
So with the museum, we've had for many years, we've had an application in to do this. This year we called BC assessment and we received word that that building is on the statutory exemption list. So technically a application doesn't have to be made, but we're having conflicting reports. So we're clarifying that, so which is why we added it to the list, just to be safe, to make sure that it does get a statutory exemption. On the deadline, sorry, was August 29th for the applications.
Okay, follow up. Go ahead, Director Federico.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So the building that the Friendship Club and the library are in is RDOS owned. So do we need to check that that's an exempt parcel or whether we're in the similar boat with those groups? We own the, like RDOS owns that
I can
building.
double check. I'm assuming it is statutory exempt. I'm assuming they don't receive an income tax or a property tax notice. And if they don't, then that means they are exempt.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? Not seeing any hands, we'll call the question on this. Again, corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to legislative services, fees and charges amendment bylaw, CAO.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to actually amend the fees and charges to reflect the current prices and to add fees that have not been there before. Staff included, which includes the Pioneer Park in Toledo. Staff's here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, direction on this. Director Monteith, you want to move it? Mover, a seconder for it. Thank you. Any discussion on this one or questions? Again, not seeing any hands. Corporate vote, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Security issuing bylaw for Summerland, CAO.
Thank you. To undertake municipal financing on behalf of the District of Summerland in accordance with Section 410 of the Local Government Act through the Municipal Finance Authority, which is the MFA, for the estimated cost of construction of the Victoria Road 5 upgrade and Werton Street upgrades. So staff here to answer any questions. This is something that is required once the municipality adopts their borrowing bylaw. And you see the recommendation as shown on the screen.
Okay, I'm assuming both of those Summerland people want to move and second that, so I'm seeing nods. It's on the floor. Any discussion on this? Again, not seeing any hands. Call the question for a corporate vote. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. That should bring us down a notch, but we do have that one item, C1. Looks like Director Gettens is not going to make it on time for that one. So let's deal with that one now, going back to C1, which was the updated resolutions for the Strategic Priorities Fund. I will go to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a new requirement that the province has asked us to do. So essentially, the new resolution is asking us to support the willingness to provide overall grant management for the project and to have any cost overruns that are beyond the requested grant amounts be guaranteed by the regional district. So you see the recommendation on the screen. Staff's here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, someone prepared to move this one? Director Taylor, thank you, and Director Barkwell, it's on the floor. Any discussion? Director Monteith, go ahead.
Thank you. I fully support these projects. So I guess I'm just looking at kind of a high level question in that if there is overages, how are those recouped? Is that the services that are paying for it? Is that general government? Like, what does that look like?
I'll go to the CAO.
Well, I can answer that, but also I'll ask Lisa to answer. If there are overages, we cannot borrow more than what was authorized through the MFA. It would more than likely have to go through user fees. However, overages are controlled. We're not one of those. I'm not going to say there's few local governments out there that do go over. We have a very tight control on our costs. We have contingency built in. And one of the things that is required, we hired an independent consultant to tell us what is needed with a contingency factor. And that is one reason why I will always support taking whatever we ask, the consultant asks us, that is what we will always support. We will not take, I would never recommend taking a water service without having the full amount that was recommended. in the two that we have taken over, we have got authorization to take that full amount. There's one that's out there that is asking for $33 million, and that's the Sage Mesa, and that's why I believe that Director Gettens wanted to talk about. However, I will always come to the board and say there's a risk if we take anything less than what the independent contractor told us, and not take anything other than that amount. And Lisa, do you have anything else?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just to emphasize some of the stuff CIO Zafino said. Yeah, the service itself would pay for any overages. We do have the borrowing bylaws, which would be used for any of the overages for that particular project if it went over.
Okay, any further questions? Go ahead, Director Coyne.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with Vintage Views or the Lakeshore Waterworks or Skaha State. I have questions about the Sage Mesa and with everything that's going on in their community and them asking for or getting a third party to come in and everything else. Like, I feel like there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that we're aware of, and I feel like we're stuck in the middle of it, and I'm not comfortable with anything with the Sage Mesa system right now until that's sorted out. I wish Director Gettens was here because she might have some insight into that, but right now we have a group of residents that have gotten a second opinion. It looks like any referendum right now would fail. So I'm a little reluctant on the Sage Mesa part of it.
Okay, so go to the CAO.
So there's a report coming to the board regarding Sage Mesa next meeting to talk about this specific issue. I'm very adamant in always taking whatever the independent neutral consultant gives us. We hired them to ask for their opinion, and their opinion usually 99.999% is right. And if we accept their opinion, we're reducing risks for this regional board, all 15 members. But we're invited to a meeting tomorrow that is to discuss their alternate recommendation, which was unsolicited, but we're open to listen and then discuss it at that meeting.
Okay, go to Director Barkwell and then Director Campbell. What?
Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead.
So let me sort of paraphrase this resolution just to make sure I understand it. It seems to me that they're only asking that we commit to, when we apply for a grant, we commit for any overages in the project. And this isn't really anything new. This was the way things always have been, and the overages would have to be covered by the service recipient. So, little risk really. Right?
Correct.
Okay, Director Watt.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just curious because I think there are questions, and I think Director Gettens would have some valuable input here. If we could potentially, again, go through the rest of our board meeting, and if necessary, maybe recess until she is here for an ability to speak, just for this topic, because I think it is worth it. And I don't want to defer till the next meeting. It's something we should deal with, but that gives her an opportunity to speak, and if the CO wants to talk to that.
Okay. Director Coyne, you had a hand up?
Yeah, I mean, the part that we have to add is the willingness to cover the overages. I mean, we've all had to go back to our councils and do the same thing if we applied, because it wasn't in the original and now they've asked for it. So I have no problem moving this forward. I just have problems. I have concerns, I won't say problems, with Sage Mesa, even applying for funds right now for Sage Mesa without clear guidance on where we're going. I think that's my concern is, like, we don't own this water system. It's not part of the regional district system. And now we're applying for funding that could possibly jeopardize our other funding opportunities on that system or on those systems. And I'm just concerned about the Sage Mesa being the same application or the same time as the stuff that we actually own. And that's where my concern comes right now. Because I haven't seen with all this rhetoric out on the internet of a willingness on the part of the community over there to jump in on this right now. So I'm okay with recessing it. If that's what might be the best option, if we know Director Gettens is going to make it in. If not, I think we have to make a decision on whether or not we're going to cover the overages. But it's just the overall part of Sage Mesa being part of this is my problem. It's not covering overages. It's just Sage Mesa.
Just for clarity, though, we've already approved the application in. This is just rewording that one motion. So question over here. Go ahead, Director Stewart.
I agree that perhaps waiting until Director Gettens is available. I was up at the Sage Mesa meeting and know that the discussion was put to the very large crowd that attended with regard to the RDOS applying on behalf of them in spite of there being a lack of decision. So it would be interesting if they've had any further movement forward in that regard.
Okay. I had a hand over here and then go ahead, Director Roberts.
Thank you through the chair. Mine was to follow up to Director Coyne's because I was wondering, and you did partially answer it because I'm looking at with having Sage Mesa indicated in here, is that tie us to any obligation, or is this still something that we're free and clear of? We're just preparing the groundwork if it comes our way, and we're not by any ways committing ourselves to large expenditure of time, staff, and money if it does not end up with the regional district.
Okay. I'll go to staff.
So, Mr. Chair, you do have a motion on the floor. If the board wishes to wait till the end of the meeting, I would just need a motion to defer to the end of the meeting.
Okay. So if that's the desire, someone can make that motion. Go ahead. Moved, seconded. Call the question on deferral. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? We will hold that off then until the end of the meeting or until Director Gettens does appear. So moving down to the next one, CAO reports. I'll turn it over to the CAO.
Thank you. Just want to brag about our pop-up offices. We had one last week in Oliver, which we had individuals from Oliver itself, the electoral area C and A. One of the positives that we're getting is that we are going to our clients, and where we cannot answer the questions, we pick up the phone and phone the staff that's relevant. If we can't get that staff, we get back to them. And I think it's very successful. Our next one is in Princeton, and looking forward to that one. That should take care of it, possibly based on what we're seeing in the past, probably electoral H, some from G, some residents from Princeton also might be interested because they are also regional district taxpayers. So that's one. The next one, I've got Eric here to talk about the 2026 budget and what the board can expect for the communications. Eric?
Over to Eric. Go ahead.
Thank you to the chair. Just wanted to give you a very quick recap of what we did in 2025 for the budget public engagement, and then a quick look ahead to what's happening in 2026, what is planned, pending your approval. So in 2025, the Finance Department delivered 6 municipal budget presentations, something they do every year. They're also offered to St. Penticton Indian Band as well. RDOS Communications facilitated the one hybrid meeting. So that's the meeting that's in here where people can come in person, and we didn't have any attendees for that, or they can join online. And that is recorded and posted on RDOS web channels, web and social media channels. And then there were, of course, 2 budget presentations in electoral area I, which have been ongoing now for several years, Apex and Caledon. And the electoral area budget presentations in 2025 were in person only. So we didn't have them online for Apex and Caledon. So for this year, what RDOS Communications is proposing is something we're doing right now. We're working with the Deputy CFO, Wayne Making, to prepare and distribute the PowerPoints for the 16 RDOS budgets. That's 9 electoral areas, 6 municipalities, and St. Penticton Indian Band. And this year, what we're proposing is to make videos out of them as well. So there's the static PowerPoint that you can watch at your leisure, or we'll have the video version, which animates them, so to speak, with Wayne being the animated person that he is, will voice them. And what that provides is for some people, whether they just want to look at the PowerPoint or actually listen to it, it's a little bit more engaging, hopefully. And then we'll also work with the Deputy CFO to schedule those in-person municipal meetings, making sure that that schedule runs smoothly for the 6 municipalities. And then we're going to assume that this year again, Apex and Caledon would like meetings, and we'll plan those. If any directors would like electoral area meetings for the budget, we would invite you to put your request in if you can by December 18th. That's the final board meeting of 2025. That just helps make sure we can schedule things depending on availability. As you likely know, we have the 2 budget workshops coming up, November 13th and November 27th. So that's for the public to attend and for the board to get started on that budget. And those are both Thursdays. First reading is scheduled for the first meeting in January. And that's after that first reading, that's when the public consultation period begins, when information starts getting posted online and that type of thing. So just a final note then, that in-person meeting that we have here in the boardroom, which is also online, we're planning to do that as early in the process as we can, so that we can then put that online on YouTube and different channels, so people can watch the overview and the Q&A portion as well. And just a quick note as well, the second reading for the budget is scheduled for the first meeting in February, and third reading and adoption scheduled for the first meeting in March. And that's the current schedule. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Director Federico, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Is there any more pop-ups being proposed for next year? And can I request one in Naramata for short-term rentals specific, and whether staff can be available to help a few residents walk through the process, because it's been confusing for a few. So if we can have a presence in the community to just certain scenarios specific to our residents, just kind of be there, be present, and kind of help everyone through that process would be wonderful.
CAO or?
The answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is definitely yes. If you have anything specific in the pop-up offices, let us know. We try to anticipate what is the concern in that area and bring staffs in that area. For instance, we're bringing in the people that are experts in carts, for instance. And just so that everyone knows, everything that we've heard is positive, and the person that's coming, she hears that, and she's very proud of what we're doing as a regional district. Although I'm going to admit that there are some people that may not be happy, but they're not coming in and telling us. It's those that are satisfied with the service are going out of their way to tell us that. But if any directors has something that is interested in the pop-up, let us know.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Coyne.
Are you guys going to be outside, or are you going to be inside when you come to Princeton?
What would you like us to do?
I don't know, I just want to prepare you. It's like still below zero.
Yeah, I know.
So.
We are inside.
Okay.
We do have an office there. So wherever
Well, I know you're going to put your tent out, so I didn't want to see you standing outside in -5 weather or something like that.
we do have a tent, but that's to attract people to see that we're there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not out in the tent.
All right, any further discussion on that? All right, moving on, CAO.
So continuing, just 2 more items. The next one is Strategic Priority Board Amendment updates. And I've got Matt here to give you the updates. Matt?
Hello, just a brief update on the progress for actions that are going on right now. So there's 54 completed actions for the year, which is 6 more than 2 weeks ago with the last update on the 2nd of October. Currently, we're 79% through the year. The completion percentage for projects ending this month, later October 31st, is 87%. So we're doing quite well, tracking and monitoring all of the projects that are on the list. The overall percentage for projects that are ending at the end of the year, at the end of December, is 66%. So again, we're having an increase of 6% over the last update. So staff are continuing to update, work on these projects, and we'll report that back. The 6 additional completed projects include the West Bench Water System Master Plan and Model Development, which was led by Public Works Engineering. Migration from GeoCortex to the Experience Builder, which is the mapping software, and that was led by the GIS team. The Similkameen Recreation Bowling Alley Painting project, that was led by Recreation. The completion of the Similkameen Recreation Center exterior landscaping, which was also led by Recreation. Similkameen Recreation Center heating unit install above the bowling alley, that was completed by Recreation. And the development of prescribed recreation and social prescribing plan, which was led by Recreation. So they've had a busy month. I just want to update the board and remind you that next Thursday, the 23rd, is the strategic priority session here in the boardroom. It starts at 9 o'clock. And I just want to provide an update that the staff will be meeting to have our second session for strategic priority and action planning. Our workshop will be the following Thursday. So we will be taking all of the feedback that the board collects, and we'll connect with the consultant, any feedback that's collected, and staff will have a second session the following Thursday. We are more than 6 weeks ahead of where we were last year. Last year, we didn't present to the board until March with a plan. We didn't have that plan sort of in place and draft till in middle of January. So now it's the end of October. We'll have a bit of a plan together. Again, that's a 2-year development of that work plan, and we're open to feedback and suggestions as well. So that concludes a brief update.
Okay, Director Roberts, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I'm hoping that on the 23rd that you have the availability for us to be using WebEx if possible. I'm planning on being there, but my daughter's about ready to pop at any moment. So if that happens, I will definitely be calling in.
I think it is a hybrid style, but just check.
Yes, a hybrid meeting is set up for the 23rd next week.
Okay, good to know. Any further questions? Not seeing any. Continue on, CAO.
Thank you. So finally, last meeting, I committed to bringing in a report to the board regarding the 1 hectare policy and eligibility requirements. I did. You've got it. I think still some directors may have more questions. What I essentially found out, first of all, I now know more about the 1 hectare rule than I think I need to. I have staff that now also know. If you're looking for legislation, you're not going to find it. It's a policy more than a legislated requirement. It's a policy that is so important that it is directly linked to grants. Yes, OBWB has a link to their grants, but so does the province. So even though the Similkameen, for instance, is not part of the OBWB, it is part of the province. And if you're asking for grants, it affects the regional district grants 100%. It may affect the 6 local governments. So it's important that we follow this. You do have a report. I did send out additional information. I kept looking and reading and finding more. One of the things that I'm going to recommend to the board, and I can bring it to as a policy to the board, is we should treat anything that is under 1 hectare for development similar to the way the ALR is. Right now, you receive a report that says, do you support this application, and forward it to the ALR. What I would recommend is something similar for anytime somebody approaches for a building that's under 1 hectare, that the board looks at it, looks at the feasibility, and they could just say an outright no, or say send it to the provincial government to see if it can have an exemption. There are different types of exemptions that I learned. One of them, the easiest one, is if you have a liquid waste management plan. That makes it easier. It doesn't mean it's automatic, but it can happen. But there are sometimes exemptions for specific purposes that the government did not take into account. And that's something where the board can, depending on each application, make that recommendation. It means that there's an extra step, but it also protects the electoral areas, the regional district, and also the local 6, and hopefully soon to be 7 local governments. So I'll throw that out at you.
Okay, I'll go to Director Roberts and then Coyne,
Yeah, thank you.
and over this way. Go ahead.
Through the chair. And again, as you've stated, my difficulty is when something isn't put in black and white and it comes across more as a bullying tactic. My issue, again, is not the principles behind the 1 hectare rule, because I am, of course, in agreement in regards to water safety, et cetera. My issue, of course, is that I've got specific historical communities that have particular size and are also providing by having local community water. And to look at the liquid waste management plan, what would that look like then in a community like Headley that has a community water? Their plan is that they do not hook up anybody's water unless they have an engineered septic system, and that their septic system that is okayed is certified by Interior Health. So is that in and of itself a liquid waste plan? Because a part of it is I do not want to see the destruction of small communities and their ability to continue to maybe not necessarily grow, but with the new regulations and issues under Bill 44 and densification, this just keeps on throwing more of a fly in the ointment. At the same time, I think a review should be put into place in regards to the 1 hectare policy with the regional district, especially when it comes down to size. If you've got a community-based water, the necessity to have so much land for a septic field, 2.5 acres, you could have quite a few septic fields. So it just seems to be somewhat, I would say, over the top when it comes to connecting to an already existing community water system versus having the shared land use of a septic system and a well, which I completely understand and agree with. But anyways, looking forward, I'm looking for more clarification on ways that I can protect the form and character of the community of Headley and maintain what it has, because we do not want it to slowly devolve with different fires and other issues with the community to end up being just a mobile home park rather than the historical asset that it is. Thank you.
Okay, Director Coyne, and then Director McCordoff.
Yeah, I thanks, Jim. I think sending it because we don't do our subdivisions at the regional district, we send it to the province, let them do it, because looking back at the Headley case, if you actually follow the amendment regulations in the province, it meets the criteria. But under the 1 hectare rule, it doesn't, but because it connects to a sewer system or a water system, and the parcel size in the amendments, it says say that the parcel size was large enough, but it's not in the 1 hectare rule. So I think things like that should go forward and let the province make those determinations, because if the province makes it, they can't punish us. And we are following the regulations under what the province has amended to say that is allowable.
Okay, Director McCordoff.
Thank you. So
I'll get to CAO. Want to speak first? Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank the director. That's exactly, I couldn't have said it better.
Okay, go ahead, Director McCordoff.
I already talked to Jim about this. At the last OBWB meeting last week, this issue did come up. And because it's quite confusing still, and we knew that RDOS was many people were having a concern with it, OBWB has agreed to provide a best practices management plan for the liquid waste management plan. So that would be quite helpful, I think, in how those things work, and they will put together all the information. The other thing is that James Litley, the COO, has agreed to come to a meeting anytime here and answer questions. If there are particular questions about the 1 hectare rule and the best practices for liquid waste management. And one of the concerns that we did talk about last week was that the 1 hectare policy and the government, there seems to be a lack of oversight by IHA. And they're the ones that are supposed to sort of keep track of this. So it has been talked about, and certainly you will probably hear more about it. But I'm in agreement with what was suggested. Thanks.
Okay, Director Monteith.
Thank you through the chair. So I emailed a question about the liquid waste management plan, not really understanding. So like Clayton as an example, they voted down community sewer. So they're all on septic. Like, how does that, like, do we need a liquid waste management plan? Does it make sense when everybody's on septic? Like, and there's no interest in the community to go to sewer.
I'll let staff try to take a shot at that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the liquid waste management plan is a very prescribed process by the province, and it doesn't just mean that you're going to have sewer. It could mean that you go and explore different areas for septic treatment. Like it could be maybe everybody in this area will require level 3. This area will require level 2. The liquid waste management plan looks at what's best for the community given the specific circumstances of that community. It's a very prescribed process. It looks at technical information, a lot of public engagement, which is why once it's finished, it goes to the province for approval. And in there, that is the document that you would say, okay, you know what, we've done all of the technical assessments. This area here, we believe they can go down smaller parcels. But it would have to be going through the whole liquid waste management process and then being approved by the province in that document.
Okay. Director Federico, go ahead. Got you.
Thank you, through the chair. So Area E is in the midst of one. Now I'm going to ask Lisa to kind of walk through the process with that. But ours also, we're looking at bigger things like composting toilet, gray water reuse. Like how can we think outside of the box than just a sewer? We're heading into drought. We need to be looking at far more than just what is conventionally done, so we can start looking at those alternatives. And then I did chat with Interior Health about the 1 hectare, and for them, you can go to a smaller parcel size as long as you're connected to either a municipal system of some sort or a community system, because the cross contamination is far less. So I think Interior Health needs to, I don't know what they need to do. They somehow need to get their opinion in there. They need to chat somewhere along the line. But then this expectation on them to be monitoring stuff we know is not there. It falls to us. But Lisa, do you mind kind of walking us through the process on what we're doing for Area E, kind of where we're at with that and what that kind of looks like?
Go to staff.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, essentially we are right at kind of the beginning of stage 2. There's 3 stages to a liquid waste management plan. The first one is kind of looking at status where we are right now. So it kind of looks at surveying, looks at analysis of the surrounding waters, how many people are on septic, is there a sewer, like what's the existing area look like? And then it comes up with options, lots and lots of options. There's no bad answers at that point. And that's what goes to the community, basically. It's like, this is what you've got. This is what we see as potential options. And then we start narrowing them down. And a lot of the time, it turns out that, yeah, a sewer system is, you know, the logical next step, but not necessarily the immediate step. There might be 20 years worth of other steps in between. And then eventually we will get to, you know, a wastewater treatment plant. But in the meantime, there could be other steps along the way. And that's where we are right now. We're exploring all of the steps in between to what would make sense for the designated area in Naramata for treating the liquid waste, looking after the septics. Maybe it will become a little bit more of requirements for, you know, level 3s. I'm not 100% sure yet. We haven't determined all of those. That's what we're in the middle of right now. But then we will look at certain trigger points to where, okay, you know what, now we need to start looking at, start putting in a collection system for treatment. And how would that look like? eventually, once we've kind of narrowed down the options, kind of figured out what a good trigger points and timeline would be, then we bring it forward to the final version of phase 2, and then it would go to the province. Province has to approve it, and then we move into stage 3, where we kind of summarize all of the options. So it's a long process, but the province is quite involved, and they have to approve each stage along the way.
Okay. Follow up, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, the chair. So just a follow up to that is it's trying to get provincial or federal dollars to put in a sewer or management system like this in a small community right now is just near impossible. We're not going to get the funding because they're trying to build a bigger urban centers. But we have residents who want that sort of gentle density, who want to be able to put an accessory dwelling on their parcel. So either they can move into it and their kids can move into the main house or vice versa. So this is one way that we can achieve kind of that increasing our housing in a gentle kind of way in our rural areas without exploding. But then also, as we see with our other systems we're trying to acquire that are ridiculously expensive, we can't put that on our rural residents. So I'm hugely in favor of having a liquid waste management plan. I think one for the regional district as a whole, even if it's just very basic, but just explains certain types of systems so we can maintain areas like Headley, is a good thing to have. So I would be on board with a regional one, but then also continuing on with area specific ones, especially for some of the larger communities like Naramata.
Okay, I've got Director Roberts. I've got some hands online, I see. Barkwell, and then Director Coyne Senior. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. So my last one was more of a statement, but it did have a question in there. So I'm the fly in the ointment. No zoning, no building bylaw. It's not the regional district water system. It's the Headley Improvement District water system. So in dealing with the province, can the Headley Improvement District facilitate the liquid waste management plan with the province, since this is something that they're already doing, for instance, IH in regards to a 1, 2, or 3 level septic system? They're the ones that are requiring whomever wants to hook to their water system to have that engineered study that's done, and then to have a certificate of from Interior Health that engineered study and that septic system is the appropriate for the community. So where does that fit in regards to the liquid waste process? And is it possible for them to do that with the province without us, since we don't really have any other jurisdiction in the community? Thank you.
I'm not sure which staff wants to answer that, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Typically, liquid waste management plans are done by the local government. As for whether Headley Improvement District could do it, that would be a question to pose to the province. I don't know. I could find out.
All right. Director Barkwell?
First off, I'd like to thank the CAO for his report. It's a lot to digest. The video is an hour and a half long, but it was, and I couldn't watch. I'll have to finish it, but it had the sort of information we need. And I guess I just want to make a few observations when I follow up with a question about the Interior Health. You can't count on them at all for this. They don't do any enforcement. They simply stamp a plan by a registered on-site wastewater practitioner as received. And, all the faith has to be in the registered, the ROPE, registered on-site wastewater practitioner. And a lot of people who are pushing the 1 hectare rule have no faith in the plans that the ropes are doing. And they say that they're, taking liberties with just how well the system will operate, not really following the specs and so they see that the 1 hectare rule as something essential, and they have to keep it in place to protect a lot of these areas. But if you take, say, some 1.9 hectare lot in Director Coyne's area, that's 1 million miles away from any creeks. Well, maybe I exaggerate, not 1 million, but he definitely needs this exemption process that the CEO had talked about. And we got to firm up. That seems to be the only solution here, if we want to see some rural development, and I think it's a necessary thing, we got to firm up that exemption process for these problem areas that where there is unlikely to be a waste, the liquid waste management plan. It is a terribly complicated process, and that's why they haven't been done. Summerland's taking one on now. I don't know how many years it's going to take, but it's good for our area. But Director Coyne's area, I don't know. It'll never be part of it. So there has to be something, an exemption. So as a board, we need to be advocating for this for our areas.
Okay, Director Coyne Senior.
Yeah, I think probably most of my questions have been answered. The only thing that still kind of sticks out at me is I'm gonna use the community at Tulameen for an example, where the original lots were 25 by 100-foot lots. So you have to have like 3 lots. They stick a well on one corner and they stick a septic tank on the other corner, and your neighbor does the same thing, and hopefully they all go front or back and not mixed up, but that's not necessarily the case. But who does how in the earth do you ever even get started to do one of these wastewater studies for an entire area? Like the Coal Mountain Tulameen is just an example. I mean, this has kind of been, I feel embarrassed that it's been 11 years sitting at this board table, and this is the first real discussion that I've ever heard about it. We heard about Little Ones, the issue in Naramata, and that's the only one that I've heard of until today. So how do we get on board with this? And maybe this should be something that's at the very top of the list next week at our strategic priorities, because this is a huge issue.
Okay, thanks for that. And the other Director Coyne.
Yeah, I was going to ask Lisa, is there any plans to roll this process out across the region? I mean, I go back to a little hamlet called Peachland at one time, and they did like Culloden and voted down a sewer system at one time, and it got them into a whole bunch of trouble down the road. So is there plans to bring like a liquid waste management plan to all the more urban or developed areas within the regional district?
I'll go to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not at this time, but if the board wishes to move a project forward, then it could be something that we look at in the future. Yep.
Okay, I'll go to the CAO.
If the board approves my recommendation about using the same similar system as ALR for exemptions, I would go to the other 26 regional districts and see if we can do it as a team, because all other 26 are in the same position as we are. That last week, the board authorized me to go to the other 26 and talk about the mattress where that we can have their logo. Very high success. They're all taking it to their board meetings, and we're getting the logos and support, and we're taking the lead. And in every cases, they're thanking this board for taking the lead. So based on your decision today, I will reach out to the 26 if you agree with my recommendation.
Okay. Director Roberts.
So let's just again, through to the chair, have clarity again, the process about not having things come to this board, but go directly to the province. Can we just have a clear reading of the specifics on what that does and what the cause and effect of that ruling would be?
And I would assume this would be your suggested motion?
The suggested, sorry, it's on the fly because I started seeing support with this, and I came up with this yesterday, talking to Lisa about this as a team effort. I want to give Lisa credit. It would be similar to the ALR, where you would have all the information, the facts of why it's even coming to the board, and the board would then look at it and either clearly deny it, just as you do in some ALRs, or you can state that for the staff to take it to the province for them to give us exemption, because if they give us exemption, just as Director Coyne stated, we're not going to be punished. And if it's something that I believe all other 26 would probably sign on, and we would actually try to figure out what the template of what means to get the exemption. So we would have some sort of a checklist.
Okay, Director Coyne?
I would be happy to make a motion if that's where we want to go to permit, I guess it'd be a policy change to have these directed as a forward, right?
Put forward a process similar to how we deal with the ALR? Is
Yeah.
that probably
Just
the best way to work?
Tracy's like, I'm gonna stop talking for a second. Oh, okay, I see. But
We're gonna get it
wouldn't
up.
it be, Jim, wouldn't it be advisable though, that we make a motion at anything that is a statutory approval from the province, that we just automatically approve, send that to them, let them make those decisions?
So it all depends. You should see what the request is. So rather than going from staff
But I
directly
mean-
to the province, it should go through, yes, it should go
But
through.
instead of it being an automatic denial, like, shouldn't it be like best practices to bring it to the board and
Yes.
if we make the motion to move it forward, but if it's not something that we would ever
Yes.
approve, then we would say no right away, but instead of
That's-
everything being no.
That's the way it's worded, is
Yes.
only, yeah. Okay, question, Director Federico, or were you seconding that motion when and if we see it on the screen?
Well, clarification to that then is, so if we have a liquid waste management plan in Naramata that says we can do X, are we following this process, or would we be exempt from this process because we already have one dedicated in a liquid waste management plan? Because I don't want to rope us into that if we have an LWMP
I'm
that says otherwise.
gonna let Lisa answer this for sure, but my understanding is just because you have a liquid waste management plan doesn't guarantee that you can do it. But the province still would have to give you that exemption. But Lisa?
The whole point of a liquid waste management plan is to get the provincial approval. So if it was identified on these areas that this was allowed, that is the provincial approval, right, in the liquid waste management plan itself. It actually is a very powerful document. Once you get through all the hoops, that's why it's so complicated.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. Director Federico, or you?
Follow up on that then, because then I don't want Area E in this, because if we're going to have our own liquid waste management plan, I don't want to be sending it to the province if we've already gone through this process. I'd like, for me, more.
It would already be approved though, so it wouldn't have to go to the province.
Yeah, because I don't want in that.
Yeah, it would come to the board and it would be approved in the liquid waste management plan and therefore dealt with, not forwarded to the province. Is that correct, or the way you see it, CAO? Director Coyne?
Any subdivision approval in a regional district has to be approved by the province, irregardless whether you have something in your liquid waste management plan or not. The province still has final approval
At
over.
the approving officer.
Yeah, but we don't
Yes.
have a say in that. That goes to them.
And so is this just on new subdivisions where this is going, or is this anybody who wants to either put in an accessory dwelling or anything else that revolves being connected to a community sewer? So are we specific just to new subdivision in this case, not just the addition of
Let's read the
an accessory dwelling?
motion as it's worded here. Purpose. Provides.
So that, then you're saying you're sending that to staff?
Is this what you were proposing, Director Coyne? Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify, with the liquid waste management plan, it can apply to all of those items, the secondary dwellings, the size, maximum size parcel or minimum size required. It can address all of those, but it has to be in the plan approved by the province.
Director Barkwell?
Are you aware of any, are there any grant programs that the liquid waste management plan would be eligible for?
For receiving, sorry.
Like for, you know, grant programs to help fund it, because it's a long and expensive process.
It is very much. We have received a infrastructure planning grant. It's $10,000, but it does
Help.
It does help, but no, there aren't any other programs that I'm aware of right now. I think the Strategic Priorities Fund may have been one for the capacity building. That one might allow for funding for a liquid waste management plan. I don't remember.
Okay, so there's not a great deal of them. Director Federico?
Yes, thank you, the chair. Can we double check OBWB doesn't have some funding available for that? Because I'm pretty sure James has mentioned before that OBWB does have funding to help with that.
I wouldn't say they have funding, but it might be eligible under their grants. Yeah. So this is the wording we're proposing?
Yeah.
CAO?
So I'm recommending that we develop a policy, because this is on the fly, that you actually see what the policy is, and you can authorize that one and we can move forward. And I'll look at the other 26 regional districts to see if we can do this as a partnership. So we would have the same policy throughout. I think that would be best practice. But ultimately, each board would have the power to determine what they want.
Okay. Director Barkwell?
Yeah, I think that covers most of it, but there could be lots, existing lots already. So that wouldn't necessarily involve subdivision, but they're under the 1 hectare that they want to see some development on. So would, you know,
well,
got to include that.
Currently, though, properties that are already subdivided to under 1 hectare, if this is their only house on it, they can put a septic system on it. If they can't do a secondary accessory dwelling, but they can build their original house. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just speak to this, because what we've been coming across is places like Headley, Princeton, et cetera. We're getting caught up on this 1 hectare rule when we have, like in Headley, I mean, the lot that they were proposing is bigger than the traditional lot sizes in Headley, but it fit under the regulations because it's hooked up to a community water system, but it didn't fit to the 1 hectare policy. And then there was other regulations in there under the amendments that would allow it, but the default is no, you can't subdivide your property to that size, but traditionally it fit, so why wouldn't you keep form and character, et cetera, et cetera? But this way, the province makes the determination whether or not that can be subdivided, and if they say yes, then the OWB and all the other grants can't come back and say, well, you guys broke the rules. Well, we didn't, the province did.
Go ahead.
So I go back to this, you know, including the word subdivision here, because as somebody pointed out, you could have a residence and they'd want to put a second, you know, a suite on or something like that. And would they get caught up in this 1 hectare rule if they had a, you know, a 2 acre parcel and they wanted to add a carriage house?
Yeah, that would have to be part of this. And this is motion that we're proposing here is just to develop a process. And that will be the specifics that will be ironed out in there. And then it will come back to the board. And if it's missing something, that's time for us to point it out or send it back to. Go ahead, CAO.
And that's why I said develop. That way the board has more time to consider what you're looking at. And I'd also like to include the other 6 local government CAOs in this too, because there might be some areas where they may be affected.
Okay, so I'm assuming Director Coyne will still move this. Is there a seconder for this? It's not listed in there. Any development applications?
No, that's a different topic.
Accessory dwelling though, so we're making a vote.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. That will be at the next stage when we see the actual policy. The point is, yes, you want to see it accessory dwellings included in that, not specifically subdivisions. I think staff have noted that. Seconded, Director Barkwell?
Just following up on the CAO's idea of working with the other regional districts in the province. Do we need to include that in a resolution, or we just go ahead and do that? And because there's strength in numbers, right?
CAO?
I can do that and give credit to the board for asking me to do it.
He's noting it. I'm seeing a tentative hand, Director Coyne, and then I'm going to call the question on this.
Yeah, I just think if there's a will of this board that we want to look at secondary suites, I would like, not in this motion, but I think staff should go back and look at all the new regulations that the province sent out, and we just got another email the other day, make sure compliance, that with the new regulations that we're supposed to meet on having multiple units on properties, that also fits into something around this 1 hectare rule, because I can't see the province punishing us for turning around and doing what they're telling us we have to do now. So I mean, it's a separate, to me, it's a separate thing. I think we need to deal with this because this is a thing dealing with the province, but then staff can go back and maybe something for Lisa to look at and say, yeah, no, like we should be allowed secondary suites because it falls under the new regulations, rather than, you know, adding it onto this, because I think they're two totally separate issues right now.
Okay. Just for clarity, there is, when those new housing regulations came in, the SMOO, I think it's called, they already had clarified the 1 hectare policy in there. Anything less than a hectare can't put a secondary accessory dwelling already. It's the way it's worded. So that's why you need to do a liquid waste management plan or some type of exemption policy or process to get through that. So, yep. Seeing no other hands, we've got the board or the motion on the floor. Anybody's comfortable with that? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Anything further from the CAO in your CAO report?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. Moving down here, other business, chair's report. Not a whole lot to report other than with the OK Falls Incorporation. We have been still meeting on occasion, or fairly regular occasion, and with the province. And basically our push at this point is to get the province to put some sort of public information out in a timely fashion for OK Falls residents. And we're waiting on that. Nothing more for me. Directors' motions. Any motions from directors that they want to make at this time? Not seeing any hands online. Board members' verbal updates. Board representation. The first two, Municipal Finance Authority. That was a meeting at UBCM. I was unfortunately not able to attend that because we were in ministers' meetings at the time. And the same thing happened with Municipal Insurance Association. Both myself and Director Taylor were in ministers' meetings. Okanagan Basin Water Board, anything to report there?
Yes, thank you. Director Holmes is away, so he asked Sabrina and I to fill in. A couple of things other than the 1 hectare policy that we talked about at our meeting last week, which was held here, where the board is calling on the federal government and the provincial government to improve invasive mussel defense. And they would really like BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan to be a Western Canada mussel-free zone. So lots of letters going out, read that. The other thing is we had a presentation from Dr. Russello from UBCO last month, and he has come up with an artificial canine nose for detecting invasive mussels. So organisms shed genetic material, and he's trying to develop a rapid DNA detection tool to detect them on site, provided that people stop at the inspection stations. And the OBWB has committed $200,000 to further this, this plan. Sounds like it might be, we only have one dog and one dog in training at the moment. So this is kind of instead of the dog, and it might work better, and might be easier once they get it off the ground. I also want to point out that we're at drought level 4. We have been continuing to increase our drought levels. 5 is the maximum. We're at 4 right now. And after our meeting the other day, we went over to visit the Okanagan Lake Dam, the salmon passage. I believe most people on the board have already been there, but some of us had not. And it was very interesting to see the pictures of the fish and counted. And on the picture that we saw, there was an otter that had gone in there, looked at the camera, and then swam out again. So it's really well done. And anybody who hasn't been to have a look at this salmon passage, it's pretty amazing. A lot of cooperative work that went into that. And that's my report. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Okanagan Film Commission, anything there, Director Coyne?
A little bit. There's quite a bit of filming happening in the Okanagan right now. There's a film being done over in Greenwood right now, which is pretty exciting for their community. One of the things that was discussed was coming up with a standardized policy for the Okanagan Film Commission area. So when somebody wants to come and film, there's the same set of rules for the entire area instead of piecemeal here and there, because some of us are a lot more accommodating than others and whatnot. So it's starting to kind of cause some issues with the film companies because there's no consistency. So something we'll be discussing in coming days, I'm hoping. Other than that, that's about it. And I don't know if I should say welcome to the club or not, but the Smoke Mean's been in a level 4 drought since May. So, you know.
Okay, Director Bush, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's been a tariff that's affecting the film commission.
Not yet. It keeps getting batted around. It is causing some anxiety. I know last time they talked about it. Nobody's sure how he plans on implementing that, if that's the case, because the way films are made now, it goes back and forth across, just like cars, it goes back and forth across the border a dozen times, right? And I mean, there's Disney productions in the Okanagan. There's a Disney studio in the Okanagan. So does that mean they're gonna pull out? I doubt it. So yeah, there's a lot of anxiety out there as to what this actually means, but so far, nothing yet.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed there. Okanagan Regional Library, anything there, Director Federico?
We haven't had a meeting, but I just want to mention that at UBCM, we had some good conversation with ministry staff, and there was a few resolutions that went forward supporting libraries. So hopefully we can make some good headway with the province there and just some increased funding.
Okay. Sterile insect release, Director Bush?
Yeah, so we had a meeting, I don't know, a week or two ago, and they put forward a tax increase of 20%. And I convinced them to cut that in half. And even the growers are in favor of it because if they lost the SIR program, it would cost them 20 times as much. Yeah, the problem is we don't, with the reduction in acreage, we don't have enough money to put towards the cobalt fund. Because it has to be replaced every 10 years. And so I think it has to be replaced in 2028. And so that's the problem, why they need extra money.
So they're building a reserve.
Yeah.
Okay. Simia, Director Coyne just left us, so nothing to report there. Thank you for that. Starling Control, Director Bush?
Yeah, so our coordinator is not with the Grape Growers Association anymore. And so I just emailed the person in charge of the grape growers and to see if what's happening with the program. because I don't
so-
know.
So nothing to report at this time. Okay, ETC Director Bordoff.
Yes, so we have 4 meetings a year, the board. 2 of them are in person, 2 of them are online. The latest one was in person, and it was over at, well, we stayed overnight at Red Mountain and then went to Castlegar the next day for our meetings. And was quite interesting. We were staying at a place, the meeting place was called the Confluence, a brand new building that's over there. The Chamber of Commerce is in it, the visitor information, there's several other offices. And the nice thing that we had over there was several of those people that live in that area had applied to grants from ETC. And so we had Discover Grand Forks came and spoke to us about how the grant had affected their business and how important the grants were to them. So there was the chamber, there was Selkirk College, and they're doing a great job, Community Futures. And so it was quite interesting. The next meeting that we have, the next 2 are online, but the next in-person meeting is going to be in Summerland. So that will likely, we will ask people from the South Okanagan who have received grants from ETC to come and talk to us. So that'll be, that's not till June though. We've got a while. Yeah. Anyway, it was interesting. And if you're ever over in Castlegar, have a look at this building, the Confluence. It's a very, very safe building they've taken into account air quality, and they don't put carpets in unless they've checked that there's no, bad stuff emanating out of them. And it was really interesting. And their glass, it's very well done. Well worth a visit over there. Thanks.
Okay, sounds interesting. And I see Director Gettens is with us, so we're going to go back to that item C1, which was the Strategic Priorities Fund application. And just to update Director Gettens, we have a motion moved and seconded, so that motion is on the floor. There was some desire to hear from yourself, Director Gettens, kind of what's going on with Sage Mesa. A few directors were showing or having some concern about applying for this grant prior to actually owning the system. So Director Gettens, I will turn it to you for a moment.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you and apologies. It was unavoidable this morning to be late. Can I just confirm what is the motion that's on the floor?
The staff recommended one.
Okay, thank you so much. And I don't know exactly what the concerns were because of course that I wasn't here, but if for a Sage, maybe can you just help me with that? Sorry, Chair. Is the concerns about it still being privately owned and then being this grant through?
Somewhat was, maybe I'll let Director Coyne, he was speaking to it earlier. So Director Coyne.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, my concern is that, we're applying for a grant for a water system that I don't know we're actually going to, well, we don't own it right now, and I don't know if we're going to own it. So I'm just concerned that we're jeopardizing our other opportunities right now with applying for something that is contentious, and really, I don't know where it's going to go. And I mean, my personal feelings is that we should probably take a step back until the province and the ratepayers come up with at least have some discussions about where this is going, because I feel like it's heading down do I dare say it publicly, like a legal route, and I don't want us to be in the middle of that.
Thank you.
Director Gettens.
Yeah,
Comments?
thanks, the Chair. Yeah, so if there is anything happening legally, it's nothing that the regional district or I am aware of or involved in. We have had several meetings with the citizens, and as you know, there's been 3 community meetings. Because the amount is so significant for just water and there's no other utilities involved in it. And Sage Mesa is in a tricky spot because they also can't densify. For a lot of citizens, this has been quite shocking and an overwhelming amount of money to be asked to agree to borrow. So part of the conversation, the request from citizens was to try and secure grant funding ahead of the referendum. And I think everybody at the board is aware of how hard our staff and I have been working at trying to make that possible. We've been working also with both of our MLAs. I don't know if there's another door or anything that can happen to get money ahead of time for this, for the citizens to be comfortable with it. That being said, I think the citizens have to make a decision about who do they want to partner with, because this work needs to be done. It's going to be done by the province, or it's going to be done if it comes over to us locally. So I appreciate the concern, Director Coyne, and with all the respect and gratitude for this board for helping and supporting this like really long conversation. There will be the referendum date does have to be set, and it will be set. I believe that's something that will come forward at the next meeting by the chair or by the CAO. At UBCM, I talked quite a while with the program director at UBCM, and it is an oversubscribed grant. We know it. We know that every municipality and every regional districts, and there's 27 of them, can all put in grants for $7 million. Regional districts need 3 at $7 million. So the math is there, and we do need to move forward with the process. So from the regional district's point of view, it is moving forward. The acquisition process is moving forward, and I just want to clarify that with the board. I think citizens were just really hoping to take some of the unknowns and the uncertainties around this much money. To that point, I do think the staff and I have worked pretty hard about getting the long-term or the short-term borrowing extended from 5 to 12 years. That's a huge deal. I've also asked Tracy to build into somehow in the bylaw that after the first 2 phases are done, an updated report will come to the board. So if in 10 years, none of us are around the table, whoever is at the table has an opportunity to review the next phase before we have to borrow the remaining amount. Like everything that can be done is done to ask this question to citizens. And so I hope that addresses some of your concerns, but, and thanks for just holding this space and letting me come back and speak to it.
Okay, Director Stewart, go ahead.
Thanks, Dr. Gettins. I think additionally, the one thing I heard referenced was the concern around application for this specifically and it precluding maybe other interests or needs of other communities or other asks while this isn't firmly in the RDOS framework. Does that capture that, what one of your concerns were, Director Coyne?
Okay. Any further comment on that, Director Gettins, or?
I think I hear that, and the board did make that decision earlier when it was selected as one of the applications to put forward. So nothing has really changed since the board first made that decision. It was a decision of the board to move forward with it. The process is still moving forward, and if it's it still is moving forward exactly how it was before.
Okay. All right, we do have the motion on the floor. Everybody can take a look at it on the screen, so we do know what we're voting on. And this is just to update the motion so it's acceptable to the grant people before they can make a determination on any of those 3. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that. And then we move on to the closed session or a potential closed session. That in accordance with section 91E and J and 2B of the Community Charter, the board closed the meeting to the public on the basis of the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, information that is prohibited or information that, if it were to be presented in a document, would be prohibited from disclosure under 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and that the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to the negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between the provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. So looking for a motion to go in camera. Moved, seconded, thank you. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? Waiting for the thumbs up from Adam. It's going slow, but he's wishing it fast. Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor. Thank you. Any opposed? We are adjourned. And with that, we will go to community services, and I'll turn it over to Director Monteith.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 11:55. Looking for a motion to accept the agenda.
What's wrong?
First, that's right.
Is it the wrong one?
The delegations for the Environment and Infrastructure Committee. I'm asking that we flip it because they've been waiting for an hour.
Environment. So that one's over to Director Taylor then. Sorry, Director Monteith.
Taylor asked me to do it.
Yep, over Director Bush then. Director Taylor's not feeling well, so my mistake.
Am I unmuted now? Yeah.
You are. Director Bush is going to take it, so.
So I'd like to call
if Director Bush would meeting for me, please.
He's starting her.
Director Bush would. I'd like to call the meeting of Environment and Infrastructure Committee to order and ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Okay, move second. Okay, carried, or all in favor, sorry. Pardon me, I haven't done this for a while. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So refer to the CAO, solid waste management.
Thank you, Chair. There is an online delegation, and this report is to provide an update on the current progress of the solid waste management plan review and an overview of the proposed options developed as part of the solid waste management process. And with the engagement of the Technical Advisory Committee and Public Advisory Committee, staff is here to answer any questions. However, there is a delegation out there ready to make their presentation.
Okay, so go ahead.
Adam, are they on?
Good morning, everyone. You hear us here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I will try to share my screen here. Hopefully that's working. First, thank you very much for having us. We're always happy to speak to the board about the solid waste management plan updates that's been happening over the last year or so here. So there are two of us here. My name is Lauren Kwan. I'm a solid waste engineer with Tetra Tech. And my colleague Wilbert Yang is also on the line. If it's possible for him to unmute himself at some point as well, that would be great. I don't know if that's possible in the system. So we'll give you a bit of an overview of what's happening with the solid waste management plan ahead of some future decisions that you folks will make. So I think the last time that you received an update holistically on the plan was last December, and there have been quite a few things that have happened since then. So we'll go through a few of those, and then we're happy to answer questions if there are any. So some general background on the plan for anyone who hasn't been involved previously. Regional districts are required to prepare solid waste management plans every 10 years. The point of the plan is for it to be a framework to help regional districts reduce the waste that they're producing and disposing, and manage solid waste in the most efficient way. Key stakeholders for this plan are the member municipalities, electoral areas, First Nations, and all of the public and residents within the regional district. The goal of the planning process is to provide a document that can guide the regional district's decisions over the next 10 years on how to reduce waste, how to make investment decisions in waste management, prioritize waste management programs along the pollution prevention hierarchy, and ensure that there's sufficient engagement with both the public, First Nations, and municipalities, other governments, to ensure that people will be happy with the future decisions that are made. So the planning process is a 4-step process that is mandated by the Ministry of Environment and Parks. First, we started with initiating the planning process that happened over a year ago. We spent some time setting the direction for the plan. We've just been working on evaluating options, and we're starting to prepare the plan, and that's something that you folks will see here in the next couple of months likely. And then there's engagement throughout the planning process. There are 2 advisory committees that have been created, a public advisory committee that includes some of the directors here, as well as members of the public and interested stakeholders from throughout the region. And there's a technical advisory committee that is primarily made up of staff from the various member municipalities and a few private sector organizations. So in terms of progress since we last spoke to you, starting at the beginning of this year, there was an online survey that was published by the regional district and promoted by many of the member municipalities. We received about 400 responses to that survey, which in our experience with online surveys is a pretty good response rate. Overall, the respondents indicated that their primary interest is in looking for programs that will improve waste diversion for residences, and less of a focus on targeting businesses and institutions. We've had 3 workshops, 2 of which were in person with the public and technical advisory committees. Those committees developed guiding principles that will be included in the solid waste management plan, and they've had input into the options, which will eventually be adopted into the plan. At the moment, we're working through the shortlisted options, which those committees had given their input on. For the most part, the options are focused on education and behavior change, how to reduce, reuse and repair items, recycling of organics, diverting construction and demolition waste, and residential and commercial recycling. And a big focus of the next planning cycle will be looking at optimizing the waste management facilities within the regional district. And then there's always some focus on how to make sure that the plan is working, collect more data, and update the plan on a fairly frequent basis. Within this next few weeks, there will be more meetings with the public and technical advisory committees where we'll look to develop the goals and targets for the solid waste management plan and have those committees confirm that the options that we've identified are what they want to see in the plan for the next 10 years. And ultimately, once those committees have agreed that the draft plan is what they want to see, that plan will come back to you folks as a draft along with a consultation plan. And that's planned for towards the end of this calendar year. You'll then get a chance to look at that draft solid waste management plan look at what we're planning for public consultation, and you'll get a chance to approve or comment on both of those, with the goal of trying to go to public consultation early 2026 if possible. I think that's overall the update general information. We're happy to discuss more anything on the survey or the options or guiding principles if anyone's interested in more of those details. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Is there any questions for? Okay. I have a question about food waste. Is that going ahead at all in our plan?
Are you referring specifically to the infrastructure that the regional districts has been looking to construct? Like
Yes,
the compost
both
facility?
actually, yeah. Cool.
I don't know if Lisa or Venus would probably have to speak to the composting facility plans overall. Within the solid waste management plan, certainly what's been addressed is how to increase diversion of organic materials away from the landfill.
Yeah.
And then the question of how to address that specific infrastructure is, I think, still a little bit of a question, and maybe staff are able to speak to that specifically.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's still something that we are working towards. We just don't have definitive answers yet. But yes, we are. It is very important for organic diversion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do have one question too, like with recycle, if people don't rinse out their salad dressing containers, what happens to that container? Is it still recyclable or does it go back in the garbage?
If I had to guess. Oh, yeah, sorry,
Sure.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
If I may speak, it really depends on just how much material is in there. If it's just a little bit of residue, it's usually not an issue. But if it's like half a bottle of sauce that's still in there, probably wouldn't be accepted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting at, what is it, 12:07? Thank you. Seconder, okay, adjourn.
All right, we'll break for lunch and start again at 12:37.
Yeah. He's going this week, isn't he?
No, he's already come back.
Oh, okay. Too funny.
Thanks, Adam. I'm not sure if we've got a quorum here. We'll count and make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
10.
9, 10. We need a couple more.
Or turn your cameras on.
Yeah, there. Thanks, Riley. That might have been the difference between a quorum or not.
That's usually the case with me, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. We will get started or continue on with our day here. And the first session is the Community Services Committee. I'm going to let Director Monteith
We're very
finish
behind.
this one. We're one behind, folks. It'll only be quick. That one's going to be canceled?
That's the one that's being canceled because
Okay.
the delegate didn't stay.
Throw that one away then. Planning and Development. And that is going to be Director Federico is chairing this one.
Thank you. So we'll call the meeting to order at 12:39 and ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved, seconded, perfect. Are we all in favor? Perfect. I don't see anyone opposed. Review of amended bylaw application fees, and I will refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek direction from the board regarding the fees to be applied to the application for an amendment of an official community plan bylaw and/or zoning bylaw, with the staff recommendation being that the regional district's fees and charges amendment bylaw 3097.05 be initiated. Staff is here with a presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Right, we'll go to staff.
Great, thank you. Through the chair, I'll just pause a moment while I wait for the presentation to be brought up. I don't seem to have control of the PowerPoint, Adam. I'm not sure if. Oh, there we go. Great, thank you. So further to the CAO's introduction, the PowerPoint is related to the proposed amendment of application fees, primarily for rezoning applications. And I'll just start with some quick background context for the benefit of the committee. So the authority for setting fees for land use applications is under the Local Government Act. And the Act does specify that when a local government establishes a fee, whether it's for rezonings or permits or other application types that it may have, that the fee specified in its fees and charges bylaw or applicable bylaw is based on the estimated average costs of processing, inspection, advertising, administration of that particular application type. So that's the legislative restriction within which we have to work. The last time the board undertook a review of its rezoning application fees was in 2021. And that was primarily prompted by the escalating costs of advertising related to rezoning applications. The electoral area planning budget experienced a deficit of $20,000 in 2020 in relation to its advertising, and that was primarily driven by the cost of newspapers. In order to help address that, the board had given us kind of stopgap funding in 2021, a substantial amount to cover the deficits in the advertising budget. In order to address that going forward, a review of fees was completed the following year or that year to see if we could increase or try to avoid that deficit. And you can see here, this is a chart that we prepared at the time that shows how the advertising budget was being impacted and the chronic underestimating of newspaper costs and where those were escalating to into 2022. So at that time, as part of the fee review, the board was given three options to consider. The first one was full cost recovery, and based on our estimated average processing costs, we believed it was about $4,000 per application. Recognizing that most land use applications are subsidized anyway, the board was given what we called at that time a revised subsidization. So not what it was at the time, but something still subsidized but slightly higher, and that was $2,500. Or of course, the third option was the status quo. And at that time, there was a differential in fees, $1,000 if it was one amendment bylaw, $1,500 if it was two amendment bylaws, OCP and zoning. So the board resolved at that time to increase the fees to $2,500, and that took effect January 1st of 2022. So fast forward to today, and as the board is aware, we do have a strategic priority for planning 2025, and that's to do a review of development permit fees, specifically rezoning applications, and that the fees charged for those should be near full cost recovery, particularly for larger applications. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we are kind of restricted by the legislation to doing an estimated average cost for our fees. It's our understanding and planning that, that's to ensure that fees aren't used as a form of taxation and also aren't used in a punitive way to discourage people from putting in land use application types that the board may not favor. And then with the average cost, I think the thinking is that this will balance out over time, that there will be applications that are below your average cost. And obviously there will be applications that take more resources than average, but over a course of years, this will balance out and you shouldn't be any worse for wear. I wanted to highlight for the board too, as part of this discussion, that especially in relation to the rezoning application fees, I think one of the biggest changes since 2021, apart from the increase in fees at that time, was also the introduction in September 2022 of the board's public notice bylaw. And so this was legislative changes coming out of the provincial development approval review process, trying to streamline applications and facilitate housing development. And so the province gave local governments the ability to move away from using newspaper ads as a form of notification and to use online options. And so the board took advantage of that and passed that public notice bylaw in 2022. And so as a result, rezonings are no longer, at least applicant-driven ones, are no longer advertised in local newspapers. And so that had a significant impact on the electoral area advertising budget, which in 2021 and 2022 was averaging just over $45,000 per year. In the 3 years since, it hasn't exceeded $5,000 in any one calendar year. So even though in 2021 we told the board that $4,000 was our average processing cost for applications, that $4,000 included the cost of newspaper ads. With newspapers no longer being a part of the rezoning application, the subsidized fee of $2,500 that the board did in 2022, that probably actually reflects pretty accurately our current fees for rezonings, because newspapers are no longer a consideration. The other challenge with the request from the board as a strategic project is determining what is actually going to be a challenging application that might warrant an additional fee or a separate fee being applied to it. We're going to suggest to you today that the scale and the scope of the rezoning application may not always be the best indicator. And we say that on the basis that if it's multiple units, 30, 40, 50 unit apartment building, or 30, 40, 50 unit subdivision, or if it's a substantial building, like use an example from OK Falls, the Warehouser development from a few years back, where I think it was a 17-acre industrial warehouse that was being proposed. Those don't always cause us the most time, because those kind of projects are usually accompanied by project teams that comprise engineers, planners, environmental folks, architects, et cetera. Anecdotally, what we would put to you is that it's actually the level of experience of an applicant that presents us with challenges and potentially takes more time. And so if it's a landowner who has no experience with the provincial land use planning system and is attempting to do a rezoning by themselves, those are the ones that sometimes take us more time, even though what they may be pursuing is not that complicated in terms of a change to the bylaws. So recognizing that, and recognizing that the board has put forward this request to review rezoning applications, and as you will have seen in the report before you today, what we're proposing at a staff level is that the fees remain the same, but where there is potentially a greater cost to us with those complicated rezonings, and I'm flipping a bit here, but by saying complicated, I mean ones with multi-units or large-scale developments, mixed use, comprehensive development, et cetera. Sometimes, or maybe often, those are accompanied by the requirement for legal document preparation, whether that's a phased development agreement, complex covenants, or bylaw review. And that those legal costs can sometimes far exceed by many factors the application fees that have been submitted for that rezoning application. Now, the regional district does have a charge in its current fees and charges bylaw to try to deal with the preparation of legal documents. That's $500. But that $500 fee was meant for more standard boilerplate type covenants, the safe harmless ones that you see with floodplains, or covenants allowing people to live in an existing dwelling while a new dwelling is being constructed, even though that might be inconsistent with zoning, or if we have to register a geotechnical report on title to facilitate some new construction. With the complicated legal documents that we see with rezonings, $500 doesn't cover it. So there may be scope for the board to consider alternatives to that, and setting out in the fees and charges bylaw a different approach to how we may recover those costs for a rezoning application. So the options before you today, there's a few of them. We could introduce into the fees and charges bylaw, to address the board's concern, a fee to recoup our legal costs in relation to rezoning applications. That would be an open-ended one that we would obviously have to discuss with applicants when the need arose for a phased development agreement or a complex statutory covenant or other legal document. Conversely, and I will qualify this by saying I think in the last 20 years we've only approached a phase development agreement once, but certainly the board could introduce a fee specifically for the preparation of that document. And I think there's a table at the end of your report that gives some examples from across the province. The board could look at a fee of $2,500 to $3,000, but recognizing we don't really have much experience with these. And so in terms of estimating an average processing cost for a phase development agreement, we're kind of going by other local governments' experience here. The third option would be to increase rezoning application fees, and recognizing that legislative limitation, the board could look at increasing it from the current $2,500 to anywhere between $2,750 or $3,000 per application. Recognizing again that over time, average costs for those that don't have legal document preparation versus those that do, this increased fee might help recoup some of our costs on those more complicated applications. And then the fourth option for the board to consider would be just simply the status quo, and that no changes are made and the current fee of $2,500 is maintained, and legal fees are just absorbed through the electoral area planning budget for complicated rezonings. So wrapping up, and as you'll see in the report, the recommendation is that we do introduce a change to the fees and charges bylaw, and that we do look at trying to recoup our legal costs on complicated rezonings with complex legal documentation requirements. And that's it for my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Perfect. Thank you to staff. Director Roberts.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. So if you have a price, like your fee, and then it ends up being easy, and you end up with funds, does that go like into a reserve that's to deal with legal fees for these other ones? How do you mandate, especially since we're not allowed to make money? So how do we manage that? Thank you.
I'll take a stab at it, but I might need some financial help. So the electoral area planning budget, I think planning application fees represent maybe 6 or 7% of that overall budget. So we're not recouping our costs when it comes to processing land use applications. And the application fees are collected and put into the electoral area planning budget, but we also do have a separate line item for legal review that's required. Generally, I think that's been put in place to help with board projects where there's an OCP review, zoning review, some other zone, well, a part of a zone review. But when there are these complicated applications with legal document prep requirements, we will use that budget for that item as well. So it is electoral area planning contributing to that legal review. It's not other services. If that answers your question, I'm not sure if there's, yeah.
Director Pendergraph.
Thank you. Through the chair, this was one of these that I had asked for the review. And it's good to see that we're closer to actual costs. I was still thinking of back, I think it was the 2022 estimation of the actual costs being 4,000. I'm glad that we're closer, but I think we should probably look at changing the legal fees so that they're a little closer. If we don't, this is just adding costs to our taxpayers. And I think we need to keep that in mind. If it isn't recouped from the applicant, it's recouped from the taxpayers.
I have, Director Monteith.
Thank you through the chair. So I'm looking for direction on this. So I'm concerned about the Okanagan Valley OCP. I've expressed that countless times. I feel like it's still going ahead, and I feel like electoral areas are about to lose their local autonomy, and it's still not sitting well with me. Like I just see the more and the more that we go down this road, it's just scaring me. So how do we look at pausing that? How do we look at not doing a regional OCP?
That one's coming up.
Is it?
Yeah. We'll chat about that in a few items. I do have a question with this review, with the rezoning. So when we're putting in the permit structure for short-term rentals, there's one that's just if it's simple, it's one cost, but then if it has to be delegated, it's another cost. So is that something that could be done here, where if it's just a simple application, it's the 2,500, and then if it gets more complicated, then there's that like a higher fee structure in there? Or do we have to look at where it's two separate, where our legal fees is one cost and then just the application itself is one cost?
Well, through the chair, so certainly there is the option for the board to consider variable fees for an application type. But I think what we were trying to explore in the report is what constitutes a complicated application. And I know an easy frame of reference would be multiple units, right? If somebody's doing a 1-lot subdivision, intuitively you would think that's a simple one versus somebody who's doing a 100-lot subdivision. But as I was trying to indicate, usually the larger developments are accompanied by a development or consultant team. And those for us tend to go smoother. It's the do-it-yourselfers who come in with no understanding or exposure to BC's land use planning system, trying to navigate a complicated application process at the regional district level. Those are the ones that we feel anecdotally take a lot of our time, and we would argue are the complicated ones. But if if we're looking for complication in relation to the larger application types, yes, it is the legal document preparation. And the back and forth with the applicants, the back and forth with the lawyers, staff reviewing, staff trying to understand how this fits with what the board's trying to accomplish with that particular application. And that can take a lot of time. And obviously the legal fees are easy to substantiate and easy to put to the applicant as a cost that we're hoping to recover from them as part of the application. So that's why the proposal before you today is recommending from staff that we build that legal fee recovery into the fees and charges bylaw.
I'll chime into that one. So comfortable with that. In my head, in our area, I anticipate with some of the short-term rental stuff will end up being potentially a rezone to tourist accommodation. So my concern then is that if we're gonna, it's probably one of those do-it-yourselfers where the costs are gonna mount because they're not quite sure what they're doing, but then also not having it be too cost prohibitive because we want them in compliance. So from my perspective, comfortable with it being the base rate and then legal documents, but I will see if anyone else has comment. Do we want a motion? Director Pendergraft?
Yeah, I would move the staff recommendation to as suggested.
Perfect, thank you. And I have a seconder, Director Roberts. Is there any other discussion on that one then? Nope. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Perfect. Is anyone opposed? I didn't see. Alrighty, that motion carries. All right, we are now on to business license regulation, item B, and I will pass that over to the CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this report, excuse me, is to seek the board's direction with respect to the regulation of home occupation, business in the Greater West Bench area with electoral area F, and the staff recommendation is that the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen Business License Regulation Amendment Bylaw 3100.02 be initiated, and there is a PowerPoint presentation if you wish to see it.
To staff, and I would say yes to our presentation.
Great. Okay. So further to the CAO's comments, so yes, this is a presentation related to the proposed licensing of home occupations in the Greater West Bench area of electoral area F. And I'll just start with some quick background again for the board's benefit. So business licensing is very new to us. The board's current business license regulation bylaw was only adopted in August of this year, so just under 2 months ago. And as the board is aware, it does allow for the regional district to regulate different types of businesses. I know most of the discussion in terms of getting this bylaw up to adoption was in relation to vacation rentals and other forms of tourist accommodation uses. But that bylaw can be applied to any business that the board so chooses. And you can see here in the third dot point, it's just a quick summary of what's currently being regulated by that bylaw. In terms of addressing strategic priorities for 2025, yes, planning is aware that this request was made. And so we've got an option for the board's consideration in terms of how it may wish to regulate home occupation businesses in the Greater West Bench area. And it's not a complicated bylaw, but I'll just go through some of the key points for it, or sorry, amendment bylaw. So even though the first one is dealing with amending the bylaw to include Area F, I just wanted to clarify for the board that that's the regulatory bylaw. The service establishment bylaw already had Area F included within it. The regulatory bylaw did not, because Area F chose not to have vacation rentals be licensed or business licensed. So we'll amend the context map in the area of applicability to include Area F, add that home occupation is a business that must be licensed, and then to define what part of Area F that applies to. And I've just got some slides that speak to that. So again, I would argue this is just a minor change to include Area F within the scope of the bylaw. Add a new subsection C under section 3 to include home occupation as a business that requires a license in electoral Area F. A and B were already previously put in relation to the vacation rental discussion and tourist accommodation discussion. And then for everybody's benefit, include a map within the business licensing bylaw showing the geographic extent that home occupations would be licensed within electoral Area F. So it really is just the Greater West Bench area, which is shown on the screenshot right here. And again, from the previous discussion around vacation rentals, as the board is aware, when adopting a business licensing bylaw or making amendments to it, there is a requirement under the Local Government Act to give notice of the board's intent to regulate that business, and then also to provide an opportunity for persons who consider they may be affected by that bylaw change to make representations to the board. So in recognition of that, and I've got some asterisks here because of the postal strike, but we are proposing, if the board's satisfied with the amendment bylaw, going forward with that statutory notification requirement. And that include a public information meeting, APC consideration, once the postal strike is sorted, or we're confident we can get letters out, advising residents in the West Bench, putting a newspaper ad, notice on the bulletin board, project webpage, feedback forms, and also a community survey, which we see as performing a dual purpose, seeking input obviously from the community, but also an educational component, just making them aware that this change is coming down the pipe. And then in terms of next steps, once we're able to successfully initiate that notification process, once it's complete, coming back to committee to present the responses that we got from the community. And if the board is okay with everything, proceeding with various readings to the amendment bylaw, and ideally having everything in place for the 2026 licensing year. But there's a couple of big ifs around that because of the postal strike. So a couple options for the board to consider. One would be to proceed with the bylaw as proposed, so we would initiate it. Or if the board's not comfortable with that the bylaw not be initiated and potentially the project being abandoned. Although obviously a third option, which I didn't have space for, would be minor modifications to it, which we would take direction from the board on. And that's it for my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yep, Director Gittens.
Thanks, Chair. I just have a couple of questions for staff. If you wouldn't mind just explaining or giving some examples of what a home occupation is, and just examples of businesses. And then what is the impact on businesses that may not fit the home occupation definition, please?
So for the board's benefit, and I believe those electoral areas that have zoning, you all have provisions that speak to home occupation uses. So it's generally something that happens within the principal dwelling, but there are allowances for it to occur in accessory structures as well. And it's limited in floor area. I believe it's 50 square meters or a certain percentage of the house, whichever is the lesser. And typical examples might include like an accounting office, I'm trying to think about their home, pet grooming, something along those lines. In terms of businesses or similar type operations in the West Bench currently that are operating maybe under perceived compliance with the home occupation regs, but upon further review may not actually comply, their options would be either to come into compliance. And so that could be if there's too much floor area being utilized, that they reduce their floor area, or if they've got a retail component to it, which isn't allowed by home occupation, that retail component is removed. Or if there's outdoor storage of materials, which again isn't really associated with the home occupation, that part of it ceases. But if that's not possible, given the nature of the business, and it's actually something else that's occurring, be it a retail use or home industry use, or I'm trying to think of other commercial uses that would, yeah. regardless, they would either have to seek a temporary use permit approval from the board or potentially a rezoning. And then it'll be up to the board to decide how they want to deal with that particular application, given the specifics of it.
If I could, if I could have a follow-up, Chair, please.
Yep, follow up.
Thank you, excuse me. So the background of this is that, greater West Bench, especially lower West Bench with larger properties, we're always sort of walking that edge between maintaining rural character of a community and having industrialization sort of push in to the community. And this is an approach that, I think staff is presenting this approach because it might be a way to help make that very clear of what is industrial, what is allowable. We do have a lot of people that sell fruit and that kind of thing, and it's not going to be my intention, or the intention of this bylaw wasn't to target, those kind of rural and community focused, but was really to make it clear of what's industrialization and what's not. And that's part of it. So if I would like to move the administrative recommendation and get some feedback from the community on this to make sure that we're still going in the direction of most of the community. When the OCP was completed quite some time ago now, it was a really contentious issue. It's how we ended up with so many quite large garages that had then also transitioned into some more industrial use. So I would like the opportunity, if staff have the time this year, to just to test this out and check in with the community again on it, because it can be really disruptive to communities when you have rural and a community beside a more industrial use of your property. So that's the background and the intention, just for the board's benefit as well.
Do I have somebody that will second that motion? Okay, that second. Do we have any other discussion on this one?
What's the motion again?
To initiate and go out to the community to see if this is still a will of the greater West Bench area. Unless Miss Batten would like to. Okay. Perfect. Seeing no discussion, I will call. Oh, I have Director Coyne Senior Danson on the screen.
I'm still really confused on, there wasn't much of an answer on what is and what isn't a home occupation. Like he used the example, the only one that I think Ben came up with was a bookkeeper, or there's people out here that I know, like massage therapists and stuff like that work out of their homes quite often. But is that like the limit to it? I mean, we have, the growth in our area, in Area H, which is a hell of a lot different than what you're talking about in Area F. But one of our big things that we're having now is we have people working remotely at home. We have business people that run their businesses out of their homes that are all like online kind of businesses. Are they all going to be expected? Like, is that's a home occupation? Does that mean they have to get a business license? Because just about everybody that lives rurally out here has some kind of sideline business. So how would that affect that sort of stuff? I'm not talking about the guy that's got 2 dump trucks and a backhoe sitting in his yard, but the guy that, as Director Gettin said, the people selling fruit, there's people that do canning and sell that sort of stuff. I know up in West Bench area, there's multiple people up there that sell flowers and bedding plants and stuff in the spring. I'm still really vague on like, how does this work? Because today's world, most people have to have a secondary income. So I'm just curious, who determines that? So I'm going to just throw that back at you. Thank you.
Go to staff and then Director Gittins.
Yeah, sorry, we were just strategizing how best to answer that. I mean, rather than try to itemize every possible use that could be a home occupation, I think generally what we're looking for is that it's an accessory ancillary use of an existing residential dwelling in a residential zone, that there's no retail component to it, that they're not reselling stuff from elsewhere through the house, which again gets to the retail component, and that they're not, there's generally no employees associated with that business who don't otherwise live on the property or in the house, right? So that's just general criteria for what a home occupation is. It's a small scale commercial allowance for a residential zone, right? That's what we're talking about.
Director Gittins.
Thanks, the chair. Again, home occupation, I totally agree with you, Director Coyne. It's everybody's doing something from, not everybody, a lot of people are doing things from their, I'm working in my home right now from a home office. So I would like the focus in the conversation and the messaging to be less about, you know, regulating and limiting that and that kind of work that doesn't impact neighbors, and the home industry that we have, like in our OCP, and I just pulled it up. It's manufacturing, fabricating, assembling, repairing of vehicle repair, auto body shops. If we did have one of the larger garages here turn into an auto paint place, and that's a very industrial use. There's a lot of sound and odor that comes out with that. It's not like somebody selling their fruit. So I like, it is murky, and I think that's why we struggle with it. If you do own an industrial business, it's appealing to find and buy a larger lot and have a lot of that machinery and that material, but it does change the form and character of a rural residential lot. And it's just testing in with the community about that again. And I try and fight for that a lot, that rural community feeling especially in lower West Bench, but also higher up. And it's just checking in with that and making sure that's still the will of the people. I believe that it is. And we're hoping by licensing home occupation, well, it sounds like we're regulating them. It means that home industry is not allowed. And that's what we're trying to determine, if that's where citizens want to keep the conversation going.
I'll go to Director Coyne Jr.
So I know this is just for West Bench right now, but I mean, I struggle even with those definitions. I mean, a guy with a bobcat and he's doing snow removal and he's parking his trailer in his yard and digging it out during the day is now not going to be able to operate. I mean, I don't know. I really struggle with this, especially when you're not in the municipality and you're living, you know, rural, whether it's residential or not. I mean, like Director Coyne Senior said, like everybody's got a side gig or working from home nowadays, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, I mean, almost every farmer I know has a job outside of the farm, right? Like I don't know. I struggle with this too. I really do. And I mean, I'm glad that you want to take this back to your community, Director Gittins, and see where they lay on it, especially when you guys say that, you know, retail. Well, what if I'm an online retailer? Like there's all kinds of stuff here. I don't want to see people not be able to make a living anymore.
Director Roberts and then Director McCordoff.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. A follow up to Director Coyne. Yeah, it was similar in regards to retail. And I was thinking about the online, but it's also, because of the cost of living and where you see things now, we're coming across these people that have, when we talk about a yard sale, it's not really a yard sale. They're a used, they become industrialized, for instance, what Director Gittins is concerned about. So you could have a yard sale at your house, or a volunteer society has a yard sale every once in a while at your property. But then you have people that are now making that their business. So it is tough water. And yeah, I do appreciate that Director Gittins is reaching out to the community. It's tough. Thanks.
Director McCordoff.
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering if, business license, obviously it's going to have to be needed for if there are safety requirements that are needed. And what about parking? If you have a business where you're doing massage thing, you might need extra parking at your place. What about if you are doing food items? You'd have to have a IH food permit. So, it sort of depends on the business. Some of them, if you're just doing something on your computer online and you don't have anybody else in there, that probably is what I think a lot of people are doing, certainly down in our area, there are a lot of people running a business from their computer, but they don't have all of the other things, the safety and the parking and food permits necessary. So there's kind of quite a few different varieties of home businesses.
Director Monteith?
Thank you through the chair. I would suspect that the director is not wanting a make work project and that this is something that she really needs for her community. So for that reason, I support her because she's asking to go back out to her community to consult with them. So I do think this is the proper process. So just for housekeeping, is there a motion on the table? Yep.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands before I call that. Yeah, I think we need a good definition on home occupation going into this, because this is, if we're asking these questions, residents, when you go out, are going to ask these questions because you're going to hit those gray areas. You know, if there's no retail sales, but now we've got guys who sell cut flowers or eggs or honey or all that fun stuff off the side of the road, are we considering that in home occupation? I've got one who, you know, she designs stuff at home and has things printed in her house, and you know, bylaws visited her and it was decided she wasn't home occupation, even though she does make it in-house. So I think this is an important conversation to clarify where we are going with this, and that needs to be clarified before we go out to our residents for them to make a decision. They have to know that we are clear. So I do think this is important for all of us. So I see no further hands. So we do have the motion on the floor just to go out to the community to see what their desires are. So I will call that question of all in favor. Perfect. I don't see anybody opposed. Alrighty, that motion carries as I turn myself off. Perfect. So now one more. This is going to be a fun one. The Okanagan Valley Official Community Plan. So this is a single OCP topic, and I will refer this to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to outline options for the proposed revision of the draft Okanagan Official Community Plan bylaw, with administrative recommendation being that the Okanagan Valley Official Community Plan bylaw be initiated and that the following items be considered for inclusion in the 2026 Strategic Priority Work Plan, and that is a conversion area zone review, Naramata Village Center zone review, Okanagan Electoral Area Dark Sky Policy Review, and finally, the Local Area Policy Review. Staff is here with a presentation and answer your questions.
We will go to staff presentation, please.
Okay, and so this presentation is for Okanagan Valley OCP bylaw, RDOS file number X 2025.007-zone. Okay, and just for a bit of background on this project, originally this project was initiated back in November 2022, and the committee resolution at that time was that a consolidated OCP bylaw for the Okanagan Valley electoral areas be undertaken as a project in 2023. Earlier this year, back in September, a proposal was brought to committee proposing to combine the Okanagan OCP project as part of the ongoing RGS review due to perceived overlap in the policy and public engagement components of each of those projects. And the resolution from that committee was that the board directed staff to hold individual workshops for each of the components, the RGS bylaw review and the Okanagan OCP review, and that this would be completed prior to board initiation of the project. Following that September committee meeting, staff did circulate a draft version of the OCP to the electoral area directors for comments. The directors were provided with about 3 weeks to submit comments back to staff, and those comments that were received have been included as attachment number 1 on the staff report, and just on the right-hand side here. So just to summarize what staff heard from the directors, staff feel that the responses can generally be placed into one of three categories. These categories are minor revisions, new strategic projects, and components that could be folded into the ongoing RGS review for reasons that I'll get to in a second. So just starting with the minor revisions, these ones you will see included in the draft version of the OCP on the agenda today. All of the requests that could be accommodated have been tracked in red line text. Just to summarize the nature of these revisions, why staff felt that they were minor in nature. Generally, they were either minor textual revisions that were simply improving the clarity of the text, word choice, selection, things of that nature. Or to the extent that new policies were being proposed, these policies were generally consistent with the existing direction of the OCP, and for that reason, they were not seen to require additional or more focused public consultation beyond what would already be required as part of the adoption process for the OCP bylaw. The second set of requests, which staff considered to be really more suited for new strategic projects to be placed on the ongoing process for the 2026 strategic project work plan. The reason why these requests were seen to be new strategic projects is that they generally involved major policy changes, either because they impacted multiple sections of the OCP or because they represented a change in policy direction of the OCP. And for that reason, these requests were seen to benefit from more focused public consultation separate from the OCP process, just so that conversation with residents could be had in a more focused nature. And so staff just summarized what options could be for these projects. By no means definitive scoping of these projects, but just some ideas. So what staff suggest would that this be a conservation area zone review, Naramata Village Center zone review, an Okanagan electoral area dark sky policy review, and a local area policy review. And again, just so that more focused engagement could be done on each of those projects if the board wishes for those to proceed. The last set of requests were seen to be requests that could be folded into the ongoing RGS review. And the reason for that is that two of the requests were seen to be outside the scope of the OCP bylaw and would be better addressed through that ongoing RGS process. And so these two requests were reviewing policies to support rezonings outside of the designated growth areas and to clarify private utility regulations for each of the electoral areas. And so again, the reason why these were seen to be better suited for the RGS review is that there are existing policies addressing each of these topics in the RGS bylaw. So the RGS does include policies related to growth management. That's policy, just as one example, 1C-3. And again, with private utilities, there's an existing policy, 3A-3. And in order to change the policy direction that those policies speak to, those policies would require an amendment to the RGS bylaw. Per section 445 of the Local Government Act, any change to regional growth strategy, if it were amended, would require that any subsequent works undertaken by the Regional District Board or any bylaws adopted by the Regional District Board to be consistent with that RGS bylaw. So if those changes were desired to be initiated by the board and subsequently amended into the RGS, they would ultimately trickle down into the OCP bylaw, which would need to be amended to be consistent with that RGS. And so next steps, if the board does choose to initiate the Okanagan OCP bylaw today, staff would subsequently prepare some reporting for the next committee meeting. So this would be a report summarizing all the significant policy changes comprised within that OCP bylaw. And that's in recognition that the board does have the policy shown on the left-hand side of your screen here, the land use bylaw transition policy, which it's the board's preference indicated there that all major changes for a land use bylaw be reported back to the board. Also included in that report would be a draft consultation plan, just again, keeping in mind the statutory requirements for a regional growth strategy bylaw. And so there is a recommendation on the report on the agenda today, and so that's that the draft Okanagan Valley official community plan bylaw be initiated, and that the following 4 projects listed there and that I previously mentioned be added to the 2026 strategic priority work plan. And just in recognition that the intent of this session was to be more of a workshop and for the board to provide direction to staff, there are alternatives listed on the report. Those would generally be that the draft OCP bylaw be amended in any manner that the board sees fit, or that the OCP bylaw not be initiated and be abandoned.
No, I have comment, but I will see who else has comment. Director Monteith. Yep.
Yeah, I was ahead of the game because I was reading the report a bit early, but a regional OCP does not have enough space for each electoral area to have its own autonomy. I went through, I looked at the report, I started adding comments. I was like, this is like a 15-hour project for me. Like, I just don't have time. It didn't even come close to nailing what my communities needed. So I will not support, I cannot support this, and I'm pretty sure my communities would not support it. It's just bringing too much of the same across the Okanagan Valley and the Similkameen, and we're all very different. We're all different electoral areas for a reason, and I don't think that we can all fit in one box.
Director Taylor.
Yeah, just wondering, I'll differ from Director Monteith in that we've got a number of buckets in there now, and maybe there's a way of doing it. I'd like to try it. I'd like to know if I submit comments now, can those still be taken into consideration? I think they're probably mostly of a minor nature.
Staff.
To the chair, yes, those can be included.
Yep. I will chime in because I don't see any other hands. I'll go to Coyne Senior.
First of all, I want to make sure this does not affect the Similkameen.
To the chair, no. It only applies to the Okanagan electoral areas, not to the Similkameen electoral areas.
Okay, now the second thing is a bit of a rant maybe, but I don't believe that when regional districts were formed, way back, was it 66 or whatever it was that it was made, there were all these all the areas were made up for a reason, identifying the individuality of each and every region. Otherwise, the province would have given us these OCPs as they were then. I think that it is very, very important that we keep each and every electoral area independent and autonomous. Maybe it makes a bit more work for planning, but it also makes it so that we can have all our individual communities. I mean, all of the communities that I have, excuse me, that I represent out here in Area H, I mean, it's about 11 distinct communities out here, and to try and even put them all into one bucket is an incredibly difficult task. And to do the whole doggone Okanagan, South Okanagan, and the Similkameen, that's just out to lunch as far as I'm concerned. So I know I do not support having a valley-wide OCP. Thank you.
Yep. No one else. I will jump in. I did fan this out to my OCP committee because ours was only adopted a couple years ago. I do have a few residents with concerns who want to bring some stuff forward. So I know, brace yourself for that. because there'll be some good strong opinions coming forward, and rightfully so. So if we're opening this up, just know that I have had quite a few who are opposed. I've had a few who are not. Opening it up does definitely give us an opportunity to make some changes. I am super frustrated that in there it says a 2026 priority for dark skies, because I'm pretty sure that is, I put it on the list for this year, and that was supposed to come forward, and I see Jim. So, yep. Thank you. Yep.
You're correct. We moved it from 26 to 25.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, I'm on the fence with this one. I mean, it does open it up, gives us some different options for Area E. So that piece, I'm interested in seeing where some of this goes. Yeah, I will go to Director Trainer.
I just have a question for staff. This first came, like the idea of a Okanagan Valley OCP bylaw, this was first presented in 2022, is that correct? Was it a staff initiated idea or did it come from the board?
Through the chair with staff.
It was staff, okay. And I can see why, because when you read further down, it looks like there's a significant cost savings if something like this. So I can understand why it was brought forward, but I also appreciate that every electoral area is very different. So well, from what I hear, it sounds like electoral area directors still want that independence, even though there's, cost associated with it.
Director Gilbert.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. And I think I've asked this before. I just want to be clear that when these OCPs go up for review, it's the individual areas that pay for the OCP like review process, correct?
Through the chair, it's not. It's electoral area planning, and all the electoral areas contribute to electoral area planning.
Follow up, Director Gilbert.
Yeah, and it is the follow-up. So let's say that the motion is to not initiate the OCP here. Those other ones that are, because in the alternative motions, you don't list the other projects like the Okanagan Dark Skies and how do you say the Naramata Center and those other projects. So if this does not get initiated, what happens to those projects?
I believe that's a decision for the board to make, how they wish to populate their 2026 work plan.
I can clarify part of that. So the Dark Skies is already on the work plan and has been for 2025. So that one will go through. The one for the Village Center was just if we are looking at an OCP review and we're opening that back up, there's a few tweaks to that document that I know a few on my committee would be happy to review, but not necessarily make it a strategic priority. I will go to Director Roberts. Okay, we have no motion on the floor at the moment in a few in different directions. So if anyone wants to make a motion on where we want to go with this or not, I'm torn. So if anyone else has a direction they would like to see go. Director Monteith.
Thank you. I'd like to make the alternate recommendation to not proceed.
Clarification to not proceed with a single OCP at all and just abandon what has been done. Is there a second to that? Director Barkwell, Director Coyne, okay, CAO.
The board can rediscuss this at the strategic priorities. Essentially, it is looking at the 2026. And so if there's something specific that the board want, you could bring it up at that time. And from what I'm hearing, either most of you or all of you would like a specific OCP for your own area, and that could be simply added to the strategic priority depending on availability resources. One of the things that you'll be discussing at the strategic priorities is which are your priorities? Each one of you, let's just talk with the 9 electoral areas directors, even if you have 2 each, that's 18. Do we have capacity, and are we going to have the priority? Which ones are going to be priority or not? And at that time, you can decide.
Director Taylor, is that a question?
Well, just a comment. I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from. I just look at how much money this frees up. I mean, whether we get individualized OCPs or a valley-wide OCP, it's not going to be perfect in the end anyway. And the one would certainly free up a lot more staff resource.
CAO.
Next week, you're going to see a tremendous amount of wish list, I'll call it, for the 2026 priorities, which is on top of the 11,000 hours that has been moved from 2025 projects to 2026. So it's not necessarily that all of a sudden you have a large pocket of time to do work. And next week will determine exactly how much projects will be authorized. And then we'll come back with the amount of hours that will show you the capacity that we have in 2026.
Director Gettens.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to confirm that the motion that's on the floor right now allows this conversation to come back to the strategic priorities. Because I think it's just not being initiated right now, but just making sure that doesn't stop it for a certain period of time or anything before we vote.
CAO.
You'll be able to rediscuss this next week at the strategic priorities plan.
Okay, then I'm comfortable supporting the motion. I think it's worth a conversation. There's a few different directions, so I think we should just have that conversation in strategic priorities.
Director Gilbert, is that a new hand?
Yeah, it is. It's just a quick question, and maybe it could be left for the priorities, but I guess like the question would be, how much staff time would be alleviated from abandoning this, and then compared to the amount of staff time that is going to be now taken up continuing to do individual, what's the benefit of both of these? Because on one hand, we're abandoning this and you're tying up staff time to do individual OCPs, where they're trying to save money and allocate, staff time elsewhere with having a one region, and then but now we're abandoning this. So what's the cost? What's the the cost benefit to this?
CAO.
So that question can be answered after the strategic priorities is established next week. Because once that's all the projects are determined, we can bring it back to staff. We put hours by division, and then come back and tell you what kind of capacity we have. No project will ever be canceled, but however, it could be moved to 2027 with the board's approval. The board will determine the final projects in 26 and which ones can be moved to 27, again, based on capacity.
Director Taylor, and then.
Yeah, just a question for staff then. Can you what it costs OCP for each electoral area now in terms of dollars and staff time? I think you had it in an earlier presentation.
So through the chair, we did, and I think this gets to an earlier question too. So the proposal for a single OCP was initiated by staff, and it was done so in recognition that at present, for us to review each electoral area OCP, I believe we're on a 20 to 25 year schedule. So if you just had your OCP reviewed hypothetically last year, it's not going to be reviewed again for 25 years potentially. And the costs associated with that review schedule over that time period is we estimated approximately $1 million because we've historically over the last 10 to 15 years put aside $100,000 for consulting fees for each electoral area OCP review. But because of some of the most recent RFPs that we put out and the very poor turnout or response to those RFPs, we recognize that our budget for these plans isn't keeping pace with the market, and that we're being outbid by other local governments, hence the poor response to our RFPs, and so we need to increase it. And so we're looking at about $150,000 we estimate per OCP, and we only have 2 staff who are dedicated to board projects. And we know the board is frustrated with the time period and the turnaround lag for projects, but when you have a dedicated staff person for a 2-year project on an OCP review, where those OCPs in the Okanagan electoral areas, we estimate to be about 80 to 85% the same. We just felt there was efficiencies to be achieved by a single OCP, and that would free up staff time, consulting dollars for other priorities established by the board.
Director Coyne Jr.
I'm just hoping that, like, if you're gonna take this strategic planning, I'm hoping we just deal with this eventually. This has been coming back and forth for how many years now, Chris? Like, you brought this forward a couple of years ago and it got shut down, and then it's back again. And I mean, you're putting a lot of time into this, and it doesn't seem to have moved really at all.
So if I can respond to that through the chair, yeah, I mean, we recognize the delay, but we felt that with the provincial changes that came down in relation to small-scale multi-unit housing and short-term rental accommodations, that we had to put priority resources into those projects, and so other projects had to be put aside. And unfortunately, the RGS amendment in the OCP was the one that suffered because of the provincial legislative changes.
So can I just make a suggestion? Maybe you figure out a way to present this a little differently coming up, and that's, you have your core stuff, and then everybody can keep their unique identity on top of it. And I don't think, I know you've kind of tried to work that in there, but maybe there's a different way to present it. Because if you got housing and you got all those things that are standard, maybe there's a way to break that up so that each community can keep their identity. Well, you have those core things that are in our, you guys have a Okanagan zoning bylaw that has all that stuff in there. You have the RGS, maybe you just focus on that. And then the other stuff you can keep separate. I don't know how you do that, but maybe there's a way to do that so it can be presented to the board so that the electoral areas that are concerned about losing their uniqueness don't lose their uniqueness, where all the stuff that's legislated is in another frame differently. Am I coming across? There's no way for you to do that? I'm pretty sure there is, but
well, no, we feel we've captured that in the draft.
But I don't think they're seeing that. So that's what I'm saying.
I know, so we need direction then. And I appreciate what you're trying to say, but thinking about how the bylaw is structured currently, I think we've accomplished that.
So I don't think it's gonna go forward then. That's my concern. You've spent a ton of time on this, and every time it gets shut down and we're back here doing the same thing again.
CAO.
So we are having a strategic priorities workshop Thursday. All you have to do is add what you just stated. If we can just cut that out and put it into the strategic priority plan, make that part of the 2026, as long as the board authorizes that, if that's what the board wants, that can be your recommendation instead of no action. Just that recommendation be forwarded to the 2026 strategic priority plan.
So is there a way for you guys to sit with the electoral areas and you guys, so you can just sit and just get this over with? Like, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just like, I see you've put a ton of time into this, but here we are again. And I think I could be wrong, but I think this is like the third time and it's still not making it forward. So maybe you guys all need to sit in a room together, and maybe we have to lock the doors till you figure it out, but something has to give here. Like, either you guys or them, one of the two you guys have to come to some sort of compromise on how to move this forward, or just abandon it.
CAO.
That's what happened with the short-term rental, and it worked. Certainly, we can try and make sure that everyone's listened to. But again, that should be part of the strategic priorities next Thursday.
Director Barkwell.
So after this came up, a few weeks ago or a month ago or whatever, we had started talking about it afterwards, and one of the things, and you mentioned it again, that the costs have gone really high because of the price of consultants. And, consultants are what, $150 an hour, and a staff person is $50 an hour. So isn't one of the solutions that we hire more staff instead of a consultants, and somebody who's gained some expertise in doing these rural OCPs internally, rather than hiring all these very expensive consultants?
And through the chair, I mean, yes, that's certainly an option, but I mean, there's still a cost with that option, and the board would have to be willing to absorb it. And I think the labor loads for planner 1 are around 130, 140,000 a year, and usually we have planner 2s doing that work. I don't have that at my fingertips, but I mean, you're essentially getting pretty close to what you're going to be paying. Like, I don't know if there's a cost savings there per se, right?
Well, I've never heard of a consultant being the same price as internal staff, so you know, but maybe there isn't the savings, I think, you know, but.
Director Watt?
Thank you, through the chair. Just a couple of very quick things. I think, first of all, we're morphing a little bit more into conversation than being in due process. Through the chair, making sure we direct questions is something we seem to be losing here as part of this conversation. And this seems to be morphing from a lack of engagement and education rather than the content. So I think Director Coyne had a pretty good idea that this might just be an education piece. And although it's coming to strategic priorities, strategic planning, let's morph that into an education piece, because the little questions that seem to keep popping up, and again, the SDR piece finally got satisfied because of the time taken for an education. Let's try to put together an hour or whatever it takes to at least address the questions and concerns.
Okay, I'm gonna go Director Taylor and then we'll figure out where we're going from here.
No, I'll withdraw my question. I support what Director Watt's saying.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to abandon, but it sounds like that's not quite where we want to go. We still have to vote on that. We can either defer to strategic priorities. We could defer to after having a workshop with just the electoral areas who hash that out, and then we can bring that back to the board. We can vote on it now. CAO.
I would recommend defer to cancel everything right now and to strategic priorities. And at that point, it can be readdressed, because you have the authority at that point to let's tell staff what priorities you want and how you want it. And that's, so if you defer to strategic priorities, you still have total control of where you want this to go.
I do think, though, on top of that, it is, I think, just the electoral areas, and even if it's just the ones involved in this, sitting down and chatting about it before even like 2 strategic priorities, because we have to make a decision whether we even wanted to show up there, and then we don't want to spend an hour or 2 talking about it at strategic priorities to hold us up. So I think those that are involved in this need to sit down first and kind of hash this detail out before bringing everybody else back in. Yeah.
Can I move to defer till after we've had a workshop?
Okay. If there's a deferral, we typically don't have discussion on that, correct? Okay. I've got a second on it, so we'll defer that and then we'll go to the CAO. I think we're deferred then.
But don't have to vote on it.
Okay. We got a second, we're all good. Okay, so then a motion then on deferral to after a workshop. Who, all in favor? Perfect. Anyone opposed to that? No, and okay, so that. Ms. Batten, how are we with that? Okay, so that's good. We'll go to the CAO for comment on that and then we'll adjourn.
So the workshop doesn't have to be before the strategic priorities. Strategic priorities can include the workshop as part of the plan.
Perfect. So we've deferred that. We can talk about it at the priorities workshop. We won't spend a lot of time on that. And now that we are at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything else added. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Perfect. Anyone opposed? Go the opposite route. No one's opposed. Perfect. We are adjourned.
Hey, thank you. And I'm just going to ask CAO, is there still the little gathering at the new building?
Yes.
You want to inform the board of that?
Yes,
Just so
the gathering of the new building, can you give the plan? Thank you.
just before everybody leaves, if Mr. Koch can,
There you
he's
go.
going to give us the details here now, and then we can.
Thank you very much,
speed up.
Chair. So the schedule, which I have in front of me, is it's an exciting day. It really is. I think the board should reflect on what this step means. It's definitely been a lot of work and represents an exciting next step for the RDOS. So the schedule here is that the directors arrive at 3 o'clock, between 3 to 3:30. The food truck will be open. There will be a director's tour of the building for those that were not able to make it on the last one, between 3:30 and 4. So take a quick loop through the building if you wish. Staff are scheduled to arrive at 4 o'clock. There's going to be a brief welcome with Chair Pendergraft at 4:30, and then a group photo with the board and staff at 4:40. Just outside the entrance. And then afterwards, there's going to be a staff tour, food truck, and that's going to be between 4:45 and 6 o'clock. Looking forward to it. Hope you can make it.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we will see those that can make it at the new facility. Thanks, everybody, and have a good day.